Hello? What's going on? No, that's not right. What did you just say? No, is he okay? Is he hurt? Oh, God, no, it can't be true.
I have the ring right here.
Yeah.
Just a minute, I think I see it.
Oh, yes, there it is.
It's not a diamond, it's moissanite.
I don't understand. Are you telling me it's gone? It's with the jeweler, Mom. But I didn't give it to them. No, that's not true. It can't be.
He left instructions for you 8 years ago.
What, my husband?
He said the ring would return.
Oh, George.
He told me, give this envelope to her when she brings it back.
The jeweler's voice changed the moment I told him my name. Mrs. Thomas, I need to ask you something. Did you authorize anyone to remove the diamond from your wedding ring? My hand went cold around the phone. My wedding ring wasn't at a jewelry store. At least it wasn't supposed to be. My daughter Lauren had borrowed it 3 weeks earlier for photos. She kept telling me it was safe. I think there's been a mistake, I whispered. There was a long silence. Then Daniel Whitmore said, Victoria, the ring is sitting in front of me. Someone brought it here to verify the diamond before it's sold. I could barely breathe. But his next words frightened me even more. Your husband came to see me 8 years ago. He asked me to tell you something if this ring ever came back here without you. Before I tell you what my late husband left behind, tell me what you would do if your own daughter did this to you. If stories about family trust and the boundaries we sometimes learn too late speak to you, please like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from and whether it's morning, afternoon, or late at night where you are. I always love knowing who's listening on the other side of these stories. 3 weeks before Daniel Whitmore called me, I still believed the worst thing my daughter could do with my ring was lose it. I wish that had been the danger. My name is Victoria Thomas. I was 68 years old, then living alone in the same brick house in Richmond, Virginia, where my husband James and I had spent most of our married life. James had been gone for 3 years. People often say grief gets easier with time. I never found that to be exactly true. For me, grief simply became quieter. It stopped announcing itself every morning and learned how to hide inside ordinary things. An empty coffee mug, a jacket I still couldn't donate, a song playing unexpectedly in the grocery store, and the ring on my left hand. Technically, it wasn't my original wedding ring. When James and I married, we had almost nothing. I was 22, working as a receptionist at a medical office while taking evening classes. James was 24 and had just started working for an electrical contractor. We rented a small apartment where the kitchen floor tilted enough that a dropped grape could roll from the refrigerator to the back door. My first wedding band was plain gold. No diamonds, no elaborate design. James apologized for it once while we were driving home from our honeymoon, a 3-night trip to Virginia Beach that we'd saved for nearly a year to afford. One day he told me, I'll buy you something beautiful. I remember looking at him and laughing. You already did. He glanced at the little gold band. No. The marriage. That was the kind of young woman I had been. And James was the kind of man who remembered sentences for decades. We didn't become wealthy. We simply became comfortable the slow-fashioned way. We worked. We saved. We made mistakes. We paid off credit cards. We bought our first house when Lauren was 4. We refinanced once when interest rates dropped and celebrated as if we'd won the lottery. I eventually became an administrative coordinator at a hospital in Richmond. James worked his way up until he was supervising commercial electrical projects. We raised one daughter, Lauren. For most of my life, I believed that being her mother was one of the things I'd done best. Maybe that belief was part of what made everything that happened later so difficult to accept. On our 25th anniversary, James told me we were going out for dinner. Nothing unusual. He took me to a small Italian restaurant we had visited for anniversaries before. After dessert, he reached into his jacket. I laughed immediately. James Thomas, if that's another kitchen appliance I'm leaving. For our 20th anniversary, he had given me an expensive mixer because I'd mentioned wanting one. He never heard the end of it. But this time he placed a small velvet box on the table. Inside was a diamond ring. It wasn't enormous or flashy. James knew me too well for that. The center stone was elegant, set in a delicate band with smaller diamonds along the sides. For several seconds I couldn't speak. Then I said, James, what did you do? He smiled. Kept a promise. What promise? The one I made when we were 22 and 24 and couldn't afford dinner without checking the bank account first. My eyes filled with tears. He took the ring from the box and held my hand. "This isn't for 25 years," he said. "It's for everything we built when nobody was watching." That sentence stayed with me. Everything we built when nobody was watching. The mortgage payments, Lauren's braces, school mornings, hospital visits, arguments followed by apologies, Christmases when money was tight, Sunday breakfasts, ordinary Tuesdays. That ring represented all of it. I wore it beside my original wedding band for the next 18 years. And when James died, it became even more precious. Some widows remove their rings eventually. I understood why. I never did. Every morning I put mine on. Sometimes I would touch the diamond while sitting alone at the breakfast table, almost as if I could reach backward through time. Lauren knew what it meant to me. That's important. She knew. Which was why when she asked to borrow it, I hesitated. It was a Wednesday afternoon in early October. Lauren came over carrying 2 coffees and talking about an anniversary photo session she and Eric had scheduled for Saturday. She was 39 then and had been married to Eric for 18 years. Lauren worked as a real estate staging consultant. She had always possessed an eye for presentation. Even as a teenager, she could rearrange a room and somehow make everything look more expensive. She sat across from me at the kitchen table and showed me examples from the photographer's website. Beautiful couples, soft lighting, family photographs, close-ups of hands, flowers, old letters, jewelry. "I wants to tell our story through objects," Lauren explained. "Our, mine and Eric's." I laughed. I was about to say nobody invited me. She smiled. Then she reached across the table and touched my hand. Specifically, the hand wearing James's ring. "He suggested bringing something from each side of the family," she said. "Something that represents where we came from." I looked down. I already knew what she was going to ask. "Mom, could I borrow Dad's ring?" I corrected her automatically. "My ring. You know what I mean." I did. But something about the wording bothered me. I ignored it. Lauren explained that the photographer wanted a close-up of her wearing her own wedding ring beside mine. 3 generations of love, she said. Yours, mine, and eventually maybe Emily's. Emily was my granddaughter, 17 years old, and far more sentimental than her mother liked to admit. "I don't know, sweetheart." Lauren blinked. "Seriously? I don't lend this ring out. I'm not exactly a stranger. I know. It's for a few hours." I rubbed my thumb against the band. Lauren noticed my hesitation. Her expression softened. "Mom, I know what it means to you." That should have reassured me. Instead, looking back, I remember the exact feeling that moved through me. A tiny resistance. Nothing dramatic. No warning bells. Just an instinct saying, "Keep it on your hand." But mothers become very good at ignoring instincts when saying no might hurt their children. Lauren smiled. "Dad would have loved this." There it was. James. She knew which door to open. Not maliciously, I told myself. Not then. She began talking about how much James had loved family photographs, how he would have teased Eric about posing, how he would have insisted on seeing every picture afterward. And she was right. He would have. I finally sighed. "All right." Lauren's face brightened. "Really, for the photographs? And then it comes straight back." "Of course." I removed the ring. My finger looked strangely bare without it. Lauren held out her palm. For a moment I didn't place it there. "I'm serious, Lauren." "Mom, it's not about the money. I know. If something happened to it, nothing is going to happen. I'm trusting you." She smiled. "I know." Then I placed the ring in my daughter's hand. I remember watching her turn it beneath the kitchen light. "Wow," she murmured. "What, I've just never really looked at it this closely." She studied the diamond, then the setting. Then she asked almost casually, "Did Dad ever tell you what he paid for it?" I laughed. "No. And I never asked. You never had it appraised." "Not that I remember." "What about insurance?" I looked at her. Lauren immediately shrugged. "I'm just thinking about the photo shoot. I'd be terrified carrying something this valuable around without insurance. It is insured." "Oh." Something passed across her face, so quickly that I almost missed it. Interest. Calculation, perhaps. But that word only came to me later. At the time, I saw my daughter sitting in my kitchen holding something her father had given me, and I saw nothing dangerous in it. I saw family. That's the cruel thing about betrayal. It rarely announces itself looking like betrayal. Sometimes it looks like your child drinking coffee at your kitchen table. Lauren slipped the ring carefully into a small zippered compartment inside her purse. I'll guard it with my life. That's a little dramatic. You started it. I smiled. Before leaving, she kissed my cheek. Thank you, Mom. Sunday. She was halfway to the doorway. What, the ring? Lauren laughed. Yes. Sunday. I promise. I followed her to the front door. The October air was cool and yellow leaves had started collecting along the curb. I watched Lauren walk toward her SUV. For some reason, I called after her. Lauren. She turned. Yeah, don't forget. She patted her purse. Sunday, Mom. Then she got into the car and drove away. I stood there longer than necessary. My left hand felt lighter. I told myself I was being ridiculous. It was a ring. My daughter had it. In 3 days, it would be back on my hand. I went inside, reheated my coffee, and continued with my afternoon. Thursday passed, then Friday. Saturday morning, Lauren sent me a photograph from the studio. She and Eric stood together against a cream-colored background, smiling like the kind of couple who had never spent a night worrying about anything. Lauren looked beautiful. I zoomed in. There on her hand beside her own wedding band was my diamond ring. For a moment, seeing it made me unexpectedly emotional. James should have been alive to see that picture. I typed back, beautiful. Your dad would have loved it. Lauren replied with a heart. I almost wrote, don't forget my ring tomorrow. But I stopped myself. She had promised. And I trusted my daughter. Sunday afternoon, I made chicken soup and expected Lauren sometime before dinner. 5 o'clock came, then 6. At 7:15, I looked through the front window when headlights passed outside. Not Lauren. At 8, I finally texted her. Everything okay? Don't forget you have my ring. Her response came 11 minutes later. Sorry, Mom, photographer wants a couple extra close-ups. I needed another day or two. Hope that's okay. I stared at the message. It wasn't what we'd agreed. Still, I didn't want to make a problem out of nothing. So I typed, okay, please be careful with it. 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Always. I put the phone down. If Lauren had told me the truth that night, everything that followed might have been different. But she didn't. And I had no idea that by the time Sunday came and went, my wedding ring was no longer simply sitting inside my daughter's purse. The photographs had already been taken, and the promise she made at my front door had already been broken. Monday morning, I woke up reaching for the ring before I was fully awake. It was an old habit. After washing my face and putting on moisturizer, I normally slipped my original gold wedding band onto my finger first, then James's anniversary ring beside it. That morning, there was only the plain gold band. I stared at the empty space beside it and told myself not to be foolish. Lauren had my ring, my daughter, not a stranger, not someone I had any reason to distrust. At least that was what I believed. I made coffee, opened the blinds in the kitchen, and tried to forget about it. By Tuesday afternoon, I hadn't heard from Lauren. I waited until nearly 4 before texting her. Did the photographer finish with the ring? Her answer arrived quickly. Not quite. He noticed the setting could use a cleaning before the close-ups. He's being really careful with it. I frowned. Cleaning, that hadn't been mentioned Sunday. I typed, I don't need it cleaned. Please just bring it home when you're finished. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, I know, Mom. It's fine. I'll take care of everything. I read the message twice. There was nothing openly alarming about it, but I didn't like the phrase. I'll take care of everything. I wasn't asking her to take care of anything. I was asking her to return something that belonged to me. Still, I let it go. That was a pattern of mine with Lauren. Not because she had always been dishonest. She hadn't. But Lauren had always been more intense than I was. As a little girl, she wanted everything immediately. If she wanted ballet lessons, she wanted the shoes that afternoon. If she wanted a particular dress for homecoming, waiting until payday felt like a personal tragedy. James used to joke that our daughter had been born with a deadline. As an adult, that urgency became ambition. She built a successful career staging homes for real estate agents around Richmond. She knew which furniture made a small room appear larger, which paint colors photographed well, which details made buyers imagine themselves living somewhere. Presentation mattered to Lauren. Maybe too much. But until then, I'd never considered it dangerous. Wednesday passed. Thursday afternoon she called and invited me to dinner at her house Friday. "Emily's been asking about you," she said. "I saw Emily last week." "Well, apparently that's too long." I smiled. "My granddaughter and I were close, 6:30. "Perfect." I almost asked about the ring, then I stopped. I didn't want every conversation with my daughter to become about jewelry. Friday evening I drove to Lauren and Eric's house in Glen Allen, about 20 minutes from mine. Their neighborhood was newer than mine, filled with large homes, manicured lawns, and decorative porch lights that all seemed to come on at exactly the same time. Lauren had always loved that house. When she and Eric bought it 6 years earlier, I worried it was too expensive. James had worried too. But Lauren had laughed. "You two think everyone should still buy houses for what they cost in 1985. James had smiled. "No, I think people should buy houses they can afford in whatever year they're living." Lauren had rolled her eyes. That memory returned as I parked in their driveway. Eric opened the door. "Victoria." He hugged me, but there was something distracted about him. Eric was usually easygoing, the kind of man who could talk comfortably with anyone. That evening his smile seemed forced. "You all right?" I asked. "Yeah, just tired. Busy." He hesitated. "Always." Before I could ask anything else, Lauren appeared from the kitchen. "Mom." She kissed my cheek and took the salad I'd brought. My eyes immediately dropped to her hands. My ring wasn't there. I hated myself for noticing. During dinner, Emily talked about school and college applications. She wanted to study environmental science, possibly at Virginia Tech. Lauren kept encouraging her to apply to several private universities too. Emily groaned. "Mom, those schools cost like $80,000 a year. That's what financial aid is for. Or I could go somewhere good that doesn't cost the price of a house." Eric gave a quiet laugh. Lauren didn't. "We'll figure it out," she said. Something about the way she said it made Eric look down at his plate. I noticed. Then I noticed something else. Eric's phone kept buzzing. Every time it did, he checked the screen. Once he actually stood and walked into the hallway to answer. When he returned, his jaw was tight. "Work?" I asked. "Supplier." Lauren quickly said, "How's your garden, Mom?" The change of subject was so obvious that Emily looked up. "My tomatoes are finished for the year." Lauren nodded too enthusiastically. "You should do herbs indoors." I almost laughed. We had somehow gone from Eric's mysterious supplier to basil. After dinner, Emily brought out a chocolate cake she'd made. While Lauren cut it, I finally asked the question I'd been avoiding. "When can I get my ring back?" Lauren's knife stopped for half a second. Then she continued slicing. "Monday, probably. Probably the photographer wanted a few additional shots." I looked at her. "I thought he was cleaning it." "He is. I mean, his assistant knows someone who cleans jewelry." Eric looked at Lauren. It was quick. But I saw it. A glance. Not confusion exactly. Recognition. As if he knew the conversation was dangerous. "Lauren," I said, "why does a photographer have someone cleaning my ring?" She set the knife down. "Mom, you're making this into something it isn't. I'm asking a question." And I answered. "No, you gave me 3 different answers." Emily stopped eating. I immediately regretted having the conversation in front of her. Lauren apparently did too. "Can we not do this at dinner? Fine." I smiled at Emily. "How's the cake?" She looked between us. "Good. It's very good." The conversation moved on. Or pretended to. After dessert, Emily asked me to look at an essay upstairs. I spent about 15 minutes helping her. When I came downstairs, Lauren was in the kitchen loading the dishwasher. Eric stood near the sliding glass door speaking quietly into his phone. He ended the call when he saw me. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah." That word again. "Yeah." The universal answer people give when everything is clearly not okay. I picked up my purse. I should head home. Lauren walked me toward the foyer. Mom, about the ring, I just want it back. I know. Monday. Yes. Not probably. Her expression tightened. Monday. I nodded. Then I hugged Emily goodbye. As I reached for the front door, I realized I'd left my reading glasses upstairs in her room. I forgot my glasses. I'll get them, Lauren said quickly. No need. I walked upstairs. I found them on Emily's desk and headed back down. Halfway down the staircase, I heard voices coming from the kitchen. Eric, low, tense. How much time did they give us? I stopped. Lauren answered, but I couldn't hear the first part. Then Eric said louder this time. That's not enough. Keep your voice down. What do you want me to do, Lauren? I said. I'm handling it. With what silence? Then Lauren said something so quietly, I caught only the last few words. Until the end of the month. A floorboard creaked beneath my foot. The conversation stopped instantly. I continued downstairs. Eric was standing beside the kitchen island. Lauren had both hands pressed against the counter. Neither looked at me. Found them, I said, holding up my glasses. Lauren smiled. Too quickly. Good. I waited. Neither volunteered an explanation. I could have asked. Instead, I said goodnight. On the drive home, their conversation kept replaying in my head. How much time did they give us? That's not enough. Until the end of the month. Maybe it was business. Eric owned a residential renovation company. Deadlines were normal. Suppliers were normal. Cash flow problems weren't unusual in construction. I told myself all of that. But another detail bothered me. Lauren had said I'm handling it. Not Eric. Lauren. When I reached home, I poured myself a glass of water and sat at the kitchen table. My phone buzzed. A message from Emily. Thanks for helping with my essay, Grandma. Love you. I smiled. Love you too. A few seconds later, another message arrived. This one surprised me. Are Mom and Dad okay? I stared at it. Why do you ask? The reply took longer. They've been arguing a lot. I didn't want to involve a 17-year-old in adult financial problems. So I wrote, your dad's probably stressed about work. Adults argue sometimes. Don't worry unless they give you a reason to. Emily sent a heart. I put my phone down. But I was beginning to worry. Saturday morning I called Lauren. She didn't answer. An hour later she texted. Busy with a client. Everything okay, I typed. Just checking in. I nearly added, and checking on my ring. I deleted it. That afternoon, I was cleaning the hall closet when I found an old photograph. James and Lauren at her college graduation. She was wearing her cap and gown, her arms wrapped around his neck. James looked ridiculously proud. I sat on the floor holding that photograph for several minutes. I remembered something he once told me when Lauren was in her 20s and had gotten herself into credit card debt. We had helped her pay it off. I had called it giving her a fresh start. James had been less certain. If we erase every consequence, he said, how does she learn which choices hurt? I'd been angry with him. She made a mistake. I know. She's our daughter. I know that too. Then why wouldn't we help her? James had sighed. I'm not saying we don't help. I'm saying there's a difference between helping someone stand up and making sure they never feel the ground. At the time, I thought he was being too hard on her. Sitting there years later with my ring still missing, I heard those words differently. Sunday passed. Monday morning came. No Lauren. At noon I texted, you promised today. Her response didn't come until nearly 2. I know, I'm sorry. Something came up. Tomorrow for sure. That was when irritation finally overcame patience. I called. She declined the call. Not missed, declined. Seconds later, a message appeared. Can't talk. With client. I stared at the screen. I suddenly realized I had been asking the wrong question. I kept asking when the ring would come back. I had never asked the most basic question. Where was it right now? So I typed Lauren, where exactly is my ring? This time there was no immediate answer. 5 minutes passed, then 10. 23 minutes later my phone buzzed. It's safe, Mom. Please stop worrying. I read those words 3 times. She hadn't answered me. I typed again. Where is it? No response. That evening I sat alone at my kitchen table with James's photograph across from me. For the first time since Lauren had taken the ring, I allowed myself to consider something I had been refusing to think. Maybe my daughter wasn't delaying its return because she was careless. Maybe she couldn't return it. And suddenly the question I'd overheard at her house sounded entirely different. How much time did they give us? I looked down at the empty beside my wedding band. The ring was somewhere. Lauren knew where. Eric probably knew too. And for reasons neither of them was willing to tell me, my daughter had decided that lying to me was easier than bringing it home. The next morning, I woke before 6 with one thought already waiting for me. Where is my ring? Not when would Lauren return it. Not whether it was safe. Where was it? There is a particular kind of discomfort that comes when someone you love gives you an answer that is technically meant to reassure you, but somehow makes you feel worse. It's safe, Mom. That sentence had kept me awake half the night. If it was safe, why couldn't she tell me where it was? I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, while the sky outside slowly turned gray. For the first time, I stopped treating Lauren's behavior as an isolated problem. Instead, I started looking backward. And once I did, things I had dismissed began arranging themselves into a pattern. About 4 months earlier, Lauren and Eric had canceled a vacation to Hilton Head. That wasn't unusual by itself. People changed plans. But Lauren had been excited about that trip for nearly a year. She had booked a beachfront condo and bought new clothes. Then 2 weeks before they were supposed to leave, she casually announced they weren't going. Eric has too much work. I hadn't questioned it. A month later, Eric missed my birthday dinner. Lauren said he had an emergency at a job site. Again, believable. Construction didn't respect birthdays. Then there were the questions. Lauren had started asking about my house. Not in a way that seemed suspicious at the time. Mom, have you ever thought about downsizing? No. This place is a lot for one person. I've lived here 34 years. I know how much house it is. She laughed. I just mean financially. You could probably get a lot for it. At another dinner, she asked whether James and I had paid off the mortgage before he died. I told her yes. That's amazing, she'd said. Then came questions about retirement. Was my hospital pension enough? Did James have life insurance? Had I updated my estate plan? I had teased her. Are you planning my funeral? She looked offended. I'm trying to make sure you're taken care of. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my daughter. But sitting alone in my kitchen that morning, every question sounded different. I didn't suddenly decide Lauren was plotting against me. I wasn't prepared to believe anything that dramatic. But I did begin to wonder whether money problems were hiding beneath the polished surface of her life. And if they were, I wanted to know whether my ring had somehow become part of them. There was one simple fact I could verify. The photographer. Lauren had told me the photographer needed additional close-ups. Then she'd said the ring was being cleaned because of those photographs. I still had the studio name because Lauren had sent me the link when she first told me about the session. I found the website on my phone. Harrison Portrait Studio. For several minutes I stared at the number without calling. I felt ridiculous. What was I going to say? Hello? I'm a 68-year-old woman, checking whether my daughter is lying to me about a ring. Then I looked at my bare finger. I pressed the call button. A woman answered. Harrison Portrait Studio, this is Nicole. Hello, my name is Victoria Thomas. My daughter and son-in-law had an anniversary session with you recently, Lauren and Eric Bennett. There was a pause while she checked. Yes, Mrs. Thomas. I see them. I was wondering if I could speak with the photographer who did their session. That's Michael. May I ask what it's regarding? I almost told her the truth. Instead, I said, there was a piece of family jewelry included in some of the photographs. I'd like to order a print. Let me see if he's available. A minute later, a man's voice came on. This is Michael. I explained who I was. Oh yes, he said. Lauren's mother. I remember the ring. My heart gave a small jump. You do, absolutely. Beautiful piece. We did some detail shots with it. I'd love to get one of those photographs. That shouldn't be a problem once Lauren and Eric finish their selections. I hesitated. Were you happy with the photographs? Yes, very. They photographed beautifully, and the close-ups, those too. My grip tightened around the phone. When did you take those? The day of the session? I didn't speak. Michael continued. We did the object shots toward the end. Were there any additional photographs afterward? Afterward? Yes. Lauren told me you needed the ring for extra close-ups. Silence. Not long, but long enough. No, ma'am. I closed my eyes. Are you sure? Yes. Everything was completed that Saturday. What about cleaning the ring? Cleaning, she said. Someone associated with your studio noticed it needed to be professionally cleaned. He sounded genuinely confused. We don't handle jewelry cleaning. I see. If there was something on the ring, I might have wiped it with a microfiber cloth before photographing it, but I wouldn't send a client's jewelry anywhere. My stomach tightened. One more question. Of course. When did you give the ring back immediately? To Lauren. Yes, we don't keep valuables here. She brought several pieces, her ring's yours. I think a watch that belonged to her husband's father. We returned everything before they left. I stared across my kitchen. Everything. Yes, ma'am. Saturday. Yes, not Sunday. Num. Not the following week. Number Michael's voice softened. Mrs. Thomas, is there a problem? I forced myself to answer calmly. I hope not. If there's anything I can know, you've helped me. Thank you. I ended the call. For several seconds I didn't move. The refrigerator hummed behind me. A truck passed outside. Somewhere down the street a dog barked. Everything around me remained painfully ordinary. But something fundamental had changed. Lauren had lied. Not once, repeatedly. The photographer never needed additional close-ups. Nobody at the studio had sent my ring for cleaning. The ring had been returned to Lauren the same Saturday she borrowed it, which meant every excuse afterward had been invented. I felt something deeper than anger, humiliation. I thought about our dinner at Lauren's house. I had asked her about the ring in front of Eric. She'd looked directly at me and said the photographer still had it. Eric had been sitting there. He knew that wasn't true. So this wasn't simply Lauren hiding something. Eric knew. That realization hurt almost as much. I picked up my phone and called Lauren. It rang 4 times. Voicemail. I called again. This time it rang twice before going to voicemail. She had declined it. My pulse quickened. I sent a message. Call me. Now. Nothing. 10 minutes later, in a meeting. What's wrong? I stared at the words. I typed, I spoke to Michael Harrison. Then I waited. The 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Disappeared. Appeared again. No message came. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Finally, why would you call him? I actually laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because her response told me everything. Not, what did he say? Not, is something wrong? Why would you call him? I typed. Because you wouldn't tell me where my ring is. Her reply came quickly. Mom, you're blowing this way out of proportion. I stood up from the table. My hands were shaking. I called her again. She declined. I typed, bring my ring to my house today. No answer. Lauren, I'm serious. Still nothing. For the first time, anger began replacing fear. I had spent days worrying that I was being unreasonable. I had worried about embarrassing Lauren. I had worried about appearing distrustful. Meanwhile, she had been lying to me from the moment that photo session ended. I walked into the living room. James's photograph sat on the mantel. It had been taken about a year before he got sick. He was standing near the James River, wearing sunglasses and smiling at whoever held the camera. Me. I remembered that day. I remembered the ring on my hand when I took the picture. Something's wrong, I said aloud. It was strange how often I still spoke to him. Not because I expected an answer. Because 43 years of conversation doesn't disappear simply because one person does. My phone rang. Lauren, I answered immediately. Where is it? No hello. No softening, she exhaled. Mom, can we talk about this later? No. I'm working. So was I for 40 years. I still managed to answer direct questions. There's no reason to be hostile. Where is my ring? Pause. It's being taken care of. I closed my eyes. That isn't a location. Mom. Is it at your house? Silence. Lauren, is my ring at your house? No. My stomach dropped. Is it with the photographer? You already know it isn't. Is it being cleaned? Another silence. Lauren. I need you to trust me. The words were almost unbearable. Trust you, yes. You've lied to me for nearly 2 weeks. I didn't lie. What would you call telling me the photographer had something he returned to you the same day I was trying not to worry you? Then tell me the truth. I will. When I have everything handled. There it was again. Handled. Does Eric know where my ring is? She didn't answer. That was answer enough. What did you do? Nothing. Lauren. Nothing that can't be fixed. My knees suddenly felt weak. I sat down. That sentence frightened me more than anything she'd said before. Nothing that can't be fixed. People don't say that about misunderstandings. They say it about damage. What needs fixing? I have to go. No, you don't. I'll come over tomorrow. Bring the ring. I'll explain everything. With the ring. She hesitated. I'll come tomorrow. Then she hung up. I remained on the sofa holding the phone. She had never promised to bring it. Not this time. That evening Emily called. She wanted to know whether I had found a recipe James used to make for apple cobbler. We talked for several minutes. I didn't mention her parents. Before hanging up, though, Emily said something quietly. Grandma. Yes, Mom seemed upset after you called. I know. Is everything okay? I wanted to protect her. So I said, your mother and I are sorting something out. Emily was silent. Then she said, Dad's been sleeping in the guest room. My chest tightened. For how long? A few nights. Do you know why? No, I didn't push. Don't put yourself in the middle, sweetheart. I won't. Whatever is happening between adults belongs to the adults. Okay. After we hung up, I sat in the darkened living room. Eric sleeping in the guest room. Arguments. A mysterious deadline. Lauren asking about my finances. And my missing ring. I didn't know how those pieces connected. Not yet. But I knew something I hadn't known that morning. My daughter wasn't protecting my ring. She was protecting a secret. The next afternoon, Lauren finally pulled into my driveway. I watched from the window as she sat inside her SUV for nearly a minute before getting out. She wasn't carrying my ring box. She wasn't carrying anything. When I opened the door, her face looked exhausted. Mom. I stepped aside. Come in. She walked past me. I closed the door. Neither of us hugged. Lauren stood in the living room, twisting her wedding band around her finger. I looked at her empty hands. Where is my ring? She swallowed. Then she gave me another explanation. And this one would lead me closer to the truth than Lauren realized. Lauren didn't sit down. That was the first thing I noticed. Normally, when she came to my house, she dropped her purse on the chair beside the door, kicked off her shoes, if she planned to stay a while, and walked straight toward the kitchen as if she still lived there. That afternoon, she remained standing in the middle of my living room. Her purse stayed over her shoulder. Her car keys were still in her hand. She looked like someone preparing for a quick escape. I stayed near the doorway. Where is my ring? Lauren rubbed her lips together. I told you I'd explain. Then explain. She glanced toward the sofa. Can we sit down? You can. She lowered herself onto the edge of the sofa. I sat across from her. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Lauren took a breath. When we were doing the photographs, Michael noticed one of the prongs looked loose. I stared at her. The photographer. Yes, the same photographer I spoke to yesterday. Her eyes shifted. He may not remember. He remembered the ring very clearly. Mom, he photographs hundreds of people. He told me he never sends clients jewelry anywhere. Lauren sighed. Because I handled it afterward. There it was. A new version. I folded my hands in my lap. Go on. I was worried the stone could fall out. Dad spent a lot on that ring, and I knew what it meant to you. So I thought I'd get the setting checked before I returned it. Where? At a jeweler. Which jeweler? She hesitated. A place near Short Pump. What's it called? Another pause. I don't remember the exact name. You left my wedding ring at a jewelry store, and don't remember the name. I know where it is. That isn't what I asked. Lauren's face tightened. I didn't come here to be interrogated, and I didn't lend you my ring so you could take it somewhere without asking me. I was trying to do something nice. Then give me the receipt. She blinked. What, the receipt from the jeweler? They didn't give me one. Then the claim ticket. I don't have it with me. Call them. Mom, Call the store and tell them you're coming to pick it up. I can't do that right now. Why? Because it isn't ready. For a loose prong and cleaning. I felt my patience slipping away. Yesterday you told me you hadn't lied. I haven't. You told me the photographer had it. I simplified things because I knew you'd react like this. Like what? Suspicious. Controlling. I almost couldn't believe what I was hearing. Lauren, it is my ring. I know that. Then how am I controlling you by asking for my own property? She stood. This was a mistake. Yes, lending it to you was. The moment the words left my mouth, pain flashed across her face. For 1 second I wanted to take them back. That was the old reflex. Protect Lauren, soften the consequences, make the uncomfortable thing easier. But I didn't. She stared at me. You really think I'd steal from you? I haven't used that word. You don't have to. I asked you where my ring is. You have given me 4 different explanations, because every time I answer you ask 10 more questions, because none of your answers make sense. Lauren shook her head. You've changed since Dad died. That landed harder than I expected. How you don't trust anyone anymore. This isn't about anyone. This is about you. No, it's about how scared you've become. I stared at my daughter. For a moment I wondered if she truly believed what she was saying. Maybe she needed to. Maybe turning me into an anxious widow was easier than admitting why she couldn't produce the ring. I trusted you enough to put something irreplaceable in your hand, I said quietly. Lauren looked away. I know. Then honor that trust. I will. When soon. I felt anger rise again. No, we're done with soon. She picked up her purse. I have to go, not until you tell me where it is. She turned toward me. Do you hear yourself perfectly? You're acting like I robbed your house. You borrowed something and refused to return it. What would you call that? All that her eyes filled with tears. That hurt me. Of course it did. She was still my daughter. I remembered her at 6 years old with a scraped knee. At 16 after her first heartbreak. At 21 calling from college because she'd failed an exam and thought her life was over. A mother doesn't stop seeing those visions simply because her child becomes an adult. Maybe that was why what she said next worked so well. Dad would hate seeing you treat me like this. The room went silent. I felt the words physically, not because they were true, because James wasn't there to contradict them. Lauren knew how much I missed him. She knew how often I still wondered what he would think about the choices I made without him. For several seconds I couldn't speak. Lauren seemed to realize she had gone too far. Mom, I didn't mean. Yes, you did. No, I'm upset. You brought your father into this because you wanted me to feel guilty. That's not fair. Was it fair to use a dead man to end a conversation you don't want to have? She looked down. I stood. If James were standing in this room, do you know what he would ask? She said nothing. He'd ask exactly what I'm asking. I stepped closer. Where is the ring? Lauren's jaw tightened. I told you, it's safe. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give you today. My anger suddenly cooled. Something in that sentence frightened me. Not wouldn't give. Couldn't. Why, Lauren's face changed. Barely. But I saw fear. What happened? Nothing. Did you lose it? No. Was it stolen? No. Did you sell it? Her head snapped toward me. No. Too quickly. Too specifically. I hadn't accused her of selling it. Yet she reacted as if that possibility had been waiting between us. Then what did you do with it? I didn't sell your ring. Lauren, where is it? She moved toward the front door. I need to leave. I followed. Tomorrow I'm going to start making calls. She turned. To who? That question told me more than she intended. If the ring is at a jeweler, I'll find out which one. Mom, don't. Why not? Because you'll make everything worse. Everything. Not the ring. Everything. What exactly am I going to make worse? Lauren closed her eyes. When she opened them, she looked exhausted. Give me a few days. No. Please. Bring my ring back. I will. When I don't know. That was the first honest thing she'd said. Lauren opened the door. Before stepping outside, she looked at me. I love you. I almost answered automatically. Then I stopped. I love you too, because I did. That was what made the whole thing so painful. She left. I watched her SUV disappear down the street. Then I closed the door and leaned against it. My legs were trembling. I went into the kitchen and poured a glass of water. I had barely taken a sip when my phone rang. Emily. For 1 second I considered letting it go to voicemail. Then I answered. Hi, sweetheart. Grandma. Something in her voice made me sit down. What's wrong? Is Mom with you? She just left. Emily was quiet. Okay. Why, I don't know if I should say anything. My stomach tightened. If you're worried about your safety, tell me immediately. No, nothing like that. Then you don't have to get involved in whatever is happening between your parents. I know. I waited. Emily lowered her voice. They were fighting again last night. I didn't interrupt. I was upstairs, she continued. They thought I was asleep. What were they fighting about? Money? That didn't surprise me anymore. Your dad's business, I think so. Emily, you don't need to tell me anything you aren't comfortable telling me. I know. But then I heard your name. My hand tightened around the glass. My name, Mom said. She won't know if we fix it in time. For a moment I couldn't breathe. What did your father say? He said they shouldn't have done it. Done what? I don't know. I closed my eyes. Anything else? Emily hesitated. There was one word they kept saying. What word? Collateral. I sat completely still. Are you sure? Yes. Yes. Collateral. Dad said something like, the collateral isn't ours. Then Mom told him to stop panicking. My heart began pounding. Did they mention the ring? I didn't hear that. I didn't want to frighten her. Okay. Grandma, what's happening? I don't know yet. That was the truth. Are Mom and Dad in trouble? They may be dealing with some financial problems. Are you mad at them? I looked toward the living room where Lauren had been standing minutes earlier. I'm trying to understand what's happening. Emily was silent. Then she said, Mom's been crying a lot. That hurt. Whatever Lauren had done, she was clearly frightened too. But fear didn't erase dishonesty. Listen to me, I said gently. You are 17. This is not your responsibility to fix. I know. Don't search through anything. Don't listen at doors. Don't confront your parents for me. Do you understand? Yes. If there's something you genuinely need help with, call me. Otherwise, let the adults handle the adult problems. Okay. I love you. Love you too. After we hung up, I remained at the table. Collateral. I knew what the word meant. Something pledged to secure a debt, a house, a car, equipment, property, something valuable enough that a lender believed losing it would motivate repayment. I looked down at my left hand. The plain gold wedding band sat alone. My mind tried to reject the thought before it fully formed. No, Lauren wouldn't. She couldn't. My daughter knew what that ring meant. She knew James had placed it on my finger after 25 years of marriage. She knew I'd worn it through his illness. She knew I'd touched it at his funeral because it was the closest thing I had to holding his hand. But then I heard Emily's words again. The collateral isn't ours. I stood so quickly the chair scraped across the floor. For the first time, the possibility was no longer simply that Lauren had misplaced my ring or left it somewhere without permission. There might be a reason she couldn't bring it home, a financial reason. And if my ring had become collateral for someone else's debt, then Lauren hadn't merely borrowed something from me. She had taken something I loved and turned it into leverage. I looked at James's photograph across the room. What did she do? I whispered. And for the first time since this began, I was afraid I already knew the answer. I didn't call Lauren again that night. That surprised even me. For most of my life, when something frightened me, my instinct was to address it immediately. James used to say I could tolerate uncertainty for approximately 7 minutes before I started making phone calls. But Emily's word had changed the situation. Collateral. If I called Lauren and accused her without knowing anything more, she would deny it. Or cry. Or tell me I was overreacting. Or worst of all, use James's name again to make me question myself. So I decided to do something I should have done earlier. I looked at what I could actually verify. Eric's company was called Bennett Residential Renovations. He had started it 12 years earlier with 1 truck, 2 employees, and enough confidence for 10 men. For a long time he'd done well. Kitchens, bathrooms, additions, historic home restorations. James respected him for building something of his own. I opened my laptop and searched the company name. At first, everything looked normal. A professional website, photographs of beautiful kitchens, positive customer reviews, a social media page that hadn't been updated in nearly 2 months. That caught my attention. Lauren used to help with the company's online presence. Normally, there were new photographs every week. I searched further. Eventually, I found a public filing connected to a dispute involving a renovation project in Henrico County. I didn't understand every legal term, but I understood enough. There was disagreement over payment, allegations about delays, money being withheld until work was completed. Then I found references to 2 supplier claims. I sat back. That didn't automatically mean Eric was dishonest or bankrupt. Construction businesses dealt with disputes all the time. But suddenly his constant phone calls made sense. So did the canceled vacation, and perhaps the guest room. The next morning, I called an old friend named Carol Jennings. Carol's husband had spent decades in commercial construction around Richmond. I didn't tell her about the ring. I simply asked whether she'd heard anything about Eric's company. There was a pause. Why I'm worried about Lauren. Another pause. That was enough. What have you heard? Carol sighed. Victoria. I don't like gossiping. Neither do I. Then ask Eric. I intend to. But I'm asking you first. She lowered her voice. Tom mentioned Bennett renovations a few weeks ago. Apparently Eric got caught badly on a large project. How badly, I don't know numbers. Is the company failing? I wouldn't say that. I don't know. But Tom said there were cash flow problems. Cash flow. The phrase sounded harmless, almost clinical. But I knew what it meant when payroll was due and customers weren't paying. Anything else, Victoria? What's going on? I don't know yet. Is Lauren okay? I hope so. I thanked her and ended the call. By noon, I had seen enough. Not enough to understand the entire situation. Enough to know Lauren and Eric had been hiding a serious financial problem. I called Lauren. This time she answered. Mom, we need to talk. I can't today. Yes, you can. I have appointments. Cancel one. She sighed. Can we do this tomorrow? No. Silence. Then I said, I know about Eric's company. That changed everything. What do you mean I know about the project dispute? I know there are supplier problems. And I know you're under financial pressure. Who have you been talking to? That isn't important. It is to me. What's important to me is my ring. Lauren said nothing. Come over. Mom today. She arrived just after 3. This time she sat at the kitchen table. I put coffee in front of her. She didn't touch it. I sat across from her. How bad is it? She stared at the mug. Eric's business, yes. Not as bad as you're making it sound. I haven't made it sound like anything. She rubbed her forehead. One project went wrong. How the homeowners kept changing things. Materials got delayed. Eric had subcontractors waiting. Then there was an inspection problem, and they stopped paying. Her eyes lifted. How do you know that I can read? She looked away. Yes. How much are they withholding? I don't know exactly. You do. Mom. Lauren, we are past protecting appearances. That struck something. Her face tightened. You think that's what I'm doing? I think you've spent months pretending everything is fine. You don't understand how Eric's business works. Then explain it. She exhaled. The project was supposed to be profitable. Very profitable. Eric put a lot into it because once the final payment came through, everything would balance. But the payment didn't come. No. And he still owes suppliers. Yes. Employees? She hesitated. Some. I felt a knot forming in my chest. How much trouble are you in personally? Lauren looked at me sharply. This isn't about us. It became about you the moment my property disappeared. Her eyes filled. Please don't say it like that. How should I say it? I didn't steal your ring. Then bring it home. I can't today. The words came quietly. There it was. Not I won't. I can't. I leaned forward. Why? Lauren stared at the table. It's complicated. Make it simple. I need a few more days. No. Mom, please. Where is my ring? She closed her eyes. I waited. Finally she said, it's somewhere safe. I almost laughed. You've worn that sentence out. I'm telling you the truth. Is it at a jewelry store? No answer. Is it at a bank? Her eyes flickered. Is it with a lender? She stood abruptly. I can't do this. I stood too. Sit down. Stop ordering me around. Then stop behaving like someone who needs to be cornered into telling the truth. Tears slipped down her cheeks. You have no idea what we've been dealing with. Then tell me. I've been trying to keep my family together. So have I for 40 years. Eric could lose everything. There it was. The first real crack. His company, everything. Why? Because if he can't finish the project, he doesn't get paid. If he doesn't get paid, he can't clear what he owes. If he can't clear what he owes, people start coming after the business. How does my ring solve that? Lauren froze. I hadn't planned the question. It simply came out. For several seconds she looked at me. Then she said, It doesn't. I knew she was lying. Emily heard you. Her face went pale. What? She heard you and Eric arguing. You dragged Emily into this. No, your daughter called me because she was frightened. What did she say? Enough. Lauren pushed her chair back. This is unbelievable. No, what's unbelievable is that your 17-year-old daughter knows you're talking about collateral, while I still don't know where my property is. Lauren turned toward the window. I watched her shoulders rise and fall. Did you use my ring as collateral? She didn't answer. Lauren, I didn't sell it. That isn't what I asked. I told you I didn't sell it. Did you borrow against it? Silence. My heart pounded. Answer me. She turned around. I was trying to fix something. The room seemed to narrow. With my ring, I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Mom, please. No, you don't get to ask me for patience anymore. Tell me what you did. She pressed both hands against the kitchen counter. I can't tell you everything yet. Why? Because it's not finished. What isn't finished? The situation. What does that mean? It means if I can get a few more days, none of this matters. I stared at her. It matters to me. You'll have the ring back. When soon? That's not good enough. She turned. I'm doing the best I can, with something that belongs to me. I know. Do you? Yes. The force of her answer startled both of us. She covered her face. When she spoke again, her voice cracked. I know what that ring means. Then why did you take it somewhere without permission? She cried quietly. I hated seeing it. A part of me wanted to move around the table and put my arms around her. I didn't. Not because I wanted to punish her. Because I was beginning to understand how often my discomfort with Lauren's pain had caused me to solve problems she needed to face. I remained where I was. Tell me the truth. She lowered her hands. Eric needed temporary financing. My stomach tightened. For the business, she nodded. Traditional financing number what kind? I don't want to get into that. Lauren, it's temporary. Did you use my ring? She looked away. That silence was almost a confession. How much? I can't. How much money did you borrow against my property? I said I can't talk about this yet. I stood. Then I'm calling the police. Her head snapped toward me. No. The fear in her voice stopped me. Why not? Because you'll make it worse. For whom? For all of us. No, for you. Mom, please. Bring me the ring today. I can't. Then get it. I can't. Why? She began crying harder. And then she said the sentence that finally confirmed my fear. You don't understand what happens if I give it back today. I stared at her. What happens? Lauren wiped her face. She didn't answer. Lauren, what happens? Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. Everything falls apart. I felt something inside me sink. This wasn't about cleaning. It wasn't about a photographer. It wasn't even about Lauren being careless. My ring was tied to something. A debt. A promise. A deadline. Something she believed would collapse if the ring returned to my hand. I looked at my daughter and barely recognized the frightened woman standing in my kitchen. How much time do you have? She looked at me. I saw the answer before she spoke. Not enough. She picked up her purse. Lauren, I have to go. This isn't over, I know. She reached the doorway. Then I asked one final question. Does Eric know you used my ring? She stopped. Her back remained toward me. That was all I needed. She walked out. I watched through the window as she drove away. For several minutes I stood motionless. Then I looked down at the empty space beside my wedding band. I had spent days asking where my ring was. Now I understood the more frightening question. What had my daughter promised someone in exchange for it, and how much would it cost me to get it back? After Lauren left, I stayed in the kitchen until the coffee in front of me went cold. I kept hearing the same sentence. Everything falls apart. There had been fear in her voice when she said it. Real fear. That mattered to me. But it didn't erase what she'd done. For years, I had believed that if someone you loved was frightened enough, helping them was automatically the right thing to do. That was especially true with Lauren. She was my only child. James and I had waited nearly 5 years before she was born. There had been one miscarriage before her, something I rarely talked about even with people I loved. So when Lauren finally arrived healthy and screaming, I held her in that hospital room and made all the promises mothers make without realizing how impossible some of them are. I will always protect you. I will never let anything happen to you. I will always be there. The problem was that children grow up. The promises don't always grow with them. I went into the living room and sat beside the cabinet where I kept family photographs. There was Lauren at 10 missing a front tooth, Lauren at 17 in her prom dress, Lauren graduating from college, Lauren and Eric on their wedding day, Lauren holding newborn Emily. A whole life arranged behind glass. And suddenly I remembered all the times James and I had stepped in when that life became uncomfortable. When Lauren was 24, she ran up nearly $9,000 in credit card debt. Nothing criminal, nothing catastrophic. Restaurants, clothes, a trip with friends, furniture for an apartment she couldn't really afford. When the minimum payments overwhelmed her, she came home crying. James wanted her to work out a repayment plan. I wanted to help. We compromised. We paid most of it, and Lauren promised to repay us. She did repay some. Then she became engaged, and we told her to forget the rest. A few years later, when Lauren and Eric bought their first home, they were short on the down payment. We helped. When Emily was 6 and Eric's work truck needed a major transmission repair, at the same time Lauren had unexpected medical bills, we helped again. Then there was a tax problem with Eric's business. A new air conditioning system. One emergency after another. Each time there was a reasonable explanation. Each time we had enough. And each time I told myself the same thing. This is what family does. James didn't always agree. Not completely. One evening, years earlier, after we'd written Lauren another check, he sat across from me at the kitchen table. "You know what worries me?" he asked. "What?" "She never has to finish falling." I remember being irritated. What does that even mean? Every time something starts going wrong, we catch her halfway down. Would you rather watch her hit the ground? No. Then what's your point? My point is, maybe touching the ground isn't always the same as being destroyed by it. I hadn't liked that. She has a child. So do we. I frowned. James smiled slightly. "Victoria, she's 32. She'll always be our child." "Exactly. That's what I'm worried about." At the time, I thought he was becoming less compassionate as he got older. Sitting alone in the house after Lauren admitted enough to frighten me, but not enough to tell me the truth. I wondered if James had simply seen something I refused to see. Maybe we'd confused rescue with love. My phone rang around 11 the next morning. "Emily. Hi, sweetheart. Are you busy? No. Can I come over?" "Of course." She arrived about 40 minutes later carrying her backpack. I made grilled cheese sandwiches even though it wasn't quite lunchtime. She smiled when I put one in front of her. "You know I'm 17, right? Does 17 mean you no longer eat grilled cheese?" "No." "Then don't complain." She laughed. For a few minutes we talked about school. I didn't ask about Lauren. I had meant what I told Emily before. She was not going to become my source of information. But eventually she set her sandwich down. "Grandma, I need to tell you something." I looked at her. "You don't have to tell me anything about your parents." "I know, I mean it. I know, but this is about your ring." My stomach tightened. "What about it?" Emily pulled one knee toward her chest. I think I saw something, when maybe a week and a half ago. What there was an envelope on the kitchen counter. Mom got really upset when she saw me near it. What kind of envelope? Business envelope. White. There was a logo. I waited. I didn't open it, she said quickly. I believe you, I just saw the name. What name? She took out her phone. I searched it afterward because Mom acted weird. She showed me the screen. Cavalier Estate and Collateral Services. I read it twice. The word collateral seemed to jump off the screen. Is that what was on the envelope? I'm pretty sure. What happened? Mom came into the kitchen and grabbed it. She asked if I'd touched it. What did you say? That I hadn't. Then, she put it in her purse. I took a slow breath. Did you see anything else? Emily hesitated. There was another paper underneath it. What paper? I don't know exactly. Something printed. Did you read it? Only the top. What did it say? She closed her eyes, trying to remember. Asset valuation. Maybe I felt my stomach drop. Are you sure? I think so? I reached across the table. Emily listened to me carefully. I don't want you looking for that envelope. I won't. Don't go through your mother's purse. Don't check your father's office. Don't photograph anything. Nothing. I wasn't going to. I know. I'm saying it because whatever your parents are dealing with is between adults. She nodded. Then she looked at me. Did Mom take your ring? She borrowed it. And won't give it back. I didn't answer. Emily understood. Is that what they used? I don't know. But you think so? I think I need more information. Her eyes filled. Are they going to jail? Oh, sweetheart. I moved around the table and hugged her. No one has said anything about jail. Dad keeps talking about deadlines. Mom keeps crying. I don't know what's happening. Your parents are having financial problems. Are we going to lose the house? I don't know. That was difficult to say. I wanted to promise her everything would be fine, but I was beginning to understand the danger of promises made only to remove fear. You're going to be okay, I told her instead. She leaned against me. That's not the same answer. No. She looked up. But it's the answer I can honestly give you. After Emily left, I searched Cavalier Estate and Collateral Services. Their office was on the west side of Richmond. The website described them as specialists in estate jewelry, purchasing luxury asset evaluation, and collateral consultation. Collateral consultation. I stared at those words. There was an address, a telephone number, office hours. I picked up my phone, then stopped. Calling Lauren would accomplish nothing. She'd already had opportunities to tell me the truth. I called the business instead. A man answered. Cavalier Estate and Collateral. My name is Victoria Thomas. I'm trying to locate a piece of jewelry that may have been brought to your office. What kind of jewelry? A diamond anniversary ring. Do you have a transaction number? No. Name associated with the transaction. I hesitated. Lauren Bennett. There was a pause. Not long, but noticeable. Then his voice became more formal. I'm sorry, ma'am. We can't disclose client information. I own the ring. If you believe property belonging to you was submitted without authorization, you'll need to come in with identification and documentation. My heart began pounding. He hadn't said they didn't have it. What kind of documentation? Photographs, appraisal records, insurance documentation, purchase records if available. I have photographs. Bring whatever you have. Can you at least tell me whether the ring is there? No, ma'am. Can you tell me whether Lauren Bennett is a client? No. His refusal was professional, but something about that initial pause stayed with me. I thanked him and hung up. For the first time, I considered calling the police. The thought made me physically ill. My own daughter. I imagined officers going to Lauren's house. Emily watching. Neighbors staring. Eric's business already struggling. I wasn't ready. Maybe that was weakness. Maybe it was motherhood. Probably both. I decided Lauren deserved one final opportunity to tell me everything before strangers became involved. That evening, I called her. She answered on the fourth ring. Mom, I know about Cavalier. Silence. Complete silence. Lauren. How? That doesn't matter. Yes, it does. No, what matters is my ring. Mom, please don't go there. My grip tightened around the phone. Why just don't? Then tell me why. I can't. You keep saying that. I need you to trust me for a little longer. No. She inhaled sharply. No, no, Lauren. Trust isn't something you demand while you're lying. I am trying to protect this family. From what? She didn't answer. Eric's bridge loan. Another silence. So Emily had remembered correctly. How much is it? I can't talk about this. Then I'll go to Cavalier tomorrow. Mom, I'll bring photographs of the ring, insurance records, whatever they ask for. You can't. Watch me. Her voice broke. If you interfere now, we could lose everything. I closed my eyes. There it was again. Everything. What exactly did you give them? She began crying. I waited. Lauren. I thought I could fix it. With my ring. No answer. That silence was no longer ambiguous. I felt something inside me settle. Not calm, resolve. I'm going there tomorrow, please. You can meet me and tell me the truth before I walk inside. I can't. Then I'll learn it without you. I ended the call. My hand shook afterward. I went upstairs and opened the small fireproof box where I kept insurance papers and important documents. I found photographs of the ring, an older insurance schedule, a photograph from our 25th anniversary showing James placing it on my finger. I put everything into a folder. Then I found the picture of James and me at that Italian restaurant. His hand was around mine. The ring was new. Both of us were laughing. I touched his face in the photograph. I know what you'd tell me, I whispered. For years I had believed protecting Lauren meant preventing consequences from reaching her. Tomorrow, for the first time, I was going to do something different. I was going to protect what belonged to me. And if the truth waiting at Cavalier hurt my daughter, I would have to let the truth hurt. Because whatever Lauren had done, I was finally beginning to understand one thing. Saving her from the consequences might be exactly what had taught her she could take the risk in the first place. The next morning, I placed the folder containing my insurance records and photographs on the passenger seat of my car. Then I sat behind the wheel without starting the engine. For nearly 5 minutes, I simply looked at my house. James and I had bought it when Lauren was 4 years old. I could still picture her running across the front lawn in red rain boots, jumping into puddles while James pretended to chase her. That little girl had trusted me with everything. Now I was driving across Richmond to find out what that same child grown into, a 39-year-old woman, had done with one of the most precious things I owned. I started the car. Cavalier Estate and Collateral Services was located in a commercial building behind a row of medical offices. It didn't look anything like a pawn shop. That surprised me. The lobby was quiet and tasteful with gray walls, glass display cases, and framed photographs of watches and antique jewelry. A woman behind the reception desk smiled. "Good morning. How can I help you? My name is Victoria Thomas. I called yesterday about a ring." Her expression changed slightly. "Do you have an appointment?" "No." "Who did you speak with?" "I don't know his name. She asked me to wait." A few minutes later, a man in his 50s came through a door. "Mrs. Thomas." "Yes, I'm Stephen." He shook my hand. "I believe we spoke yesterday." "I think so." He gestured toward a small office. "Come in." I carried my folder with me. Once we were seated, he folded his hands on the desk. "You said you believe a piece of your jewelry may have been submitted through our office." "Yes." "What kind?" I opened the folder and removed a photograph. "My anniversary ring." He looked at it. For less than a second, something changed in his face. Recognition. "I saw it. You've seen it." Stephen put the photograph down. "I can't confirm information about another client's transaction. Lauren Bennett is my daughter. That doesn't change our confidentiality requirements. The ring belongs to me. If property was submitted without authorization, that's a separate issue. Was it? I can't answer that." I removed the insurance schedule. "My husband gave me this ring on our 25th wedding anniversary. I've worn it for 18 years. Stephen examined the document. "This appraisal is old. It's still my ring." "I understand. Then give it back." He paused. "I don't physically have anything I can return to you." My heart dropped. "Where is it?" "I can't discuss a transaction involving another party." "Is it sold?" "I didn't say that. Has the diamond been removed? I didn't say that either. Then tell me something useful. Stephen leaned back. Mrs. Thomas, if you believe your property was used in a financial transaction without your consent, you should consult an attorney. The phrase financial transaction hit me harder than I expected. So it was used. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. He looked uncomfortable. I leaned forward. Please understand something. I'm not asking you to violate the law. I'm asking whether I need to leave this office and call the police. That made him sit straighter. If you believe a crime occurred, that's your decision. Do you have my ring? No. That was finally direct. Did you have it? He didn't answer. I looked at his face. You evaluated it. Silence. And then it went somewhere else. Stephen slowly pushed my photograph back toward me. You need to speak with the person who submitted the property, my daughter. He didn't confirm it, but he didn't need to. Where would an item go after you evaluated it? That depends on the transaction. What kind of transaction? We work with estate purchases, private sales, and collateral-based financing. There it was, collateral. I gathered my papers. Before standing, I asked one more question. If something was used as collateral, could the owner get it back? The legal owner. Yes. That depends on the documentation, the lender, and the representations made during the transaction. Representation statements regarding ownership. A cold sensation moved through me. What if the person who submitted it wasn't the owner? Then that becomes a serious problem. I stood. Thank you. He nodded. Mrs. Thomas, I turned. If this is what you believe it is, don't wait too long. That was all he said. I walked outside. The moment I reached my car, I called Lauren. She answered immediately. Mom, I know where my ring went. Silence. I went to Cavalier. Oh God, not surprise. Fear. I closed my eyes. Tell me the truth. Where are you? In their parking lot. Don't do anything. Too late. Mom, please. Did you use my ring as collateral? Lauren began crying. I waited. Answer me. Yes. The word was barely audible. Even though I'd already known, hearing her admit it hurt differently. I gripped the steering wheel. For what? Eric needed financing. How much, Mom? How much? 45,000. I stared through the windshield. You borrowed $45,000 against my ring. Not just the ring. What does that mean? There were other assets connected to the loan. Whose? Ours. But the ring wasn't yours. I know. No. You knew then. She cried harder. We thought the project payment would come through. Who is we? Eric and me. So Eric knew project payment would come through. Who is we? Eric and me. So Eric knew. Yes. My throat tightened. How did this happen? Lauren took several breaths. The bank wouldn't extend his business line. He had subcontractors who needed payment and materials he had already ordered. If he stopped the project, the client could terminate the contract. And somehow you decided my wedding ring was the solution. It wasn't supposed to be like this. What was it supposed to be? A temporary bridge with stolen property? Don't call it stolen. What would you call taking something without permission and using it to borrow money? I borrowed it from you. For photographs. I know. No, Lauren. You borrowed it for photographs. You did not borrow it for financing. She went quiet. I continued. When did you take it to Cavalier? The Monday after the shoot. My stomach twisted. The Monday after. While I was sitting at home believing the photographer still had it. So every excuse after that was a lie. I was trying to buy time. From your mother. I was trying to save Eric's company. What happened to the project payment? It's still tied up. Then repay the loan another way. We can't. What about your savings? Gone. That word stopped me. Gone. We put almost everything into keeping the business operating. Your personal savings. Yes. What about the house? We already have a home equity line. I closed my eyes. The polished house. The vacations. The expensive dinners. The life Lauren had spent years making look effortless. Behind it was debt. When is the loan due? It technically already is. My eyes opened. What? We missed the original deadline. And the ring, the lender can liquidate the collateral. I felt sick. When I don't know exactly. You don't know we're negotiating an extension. With whom? Mark Collins. He represents the private lender. Where is the ring now? I think it's with their asset custodian. You think they don't let us hold the collateral? Of course they don't. Mom, I can fix this. I laughed once. It sounded bitter even to me. You've been saying that for 2 weeks. Eric has another payment coming. When soon? Stop saying soon. She went quiet. I stared at the photograph folder beside me. Why didn't you ask me for money? Lauren didn't answer. Why steal my ring instead of asking? Because I knew what you'd say. What would I say? You'd ask questions. The answer stunned me. You stole my ring because asking me for help would involve questions. No. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean I knew you'd worry? You'd want to know everything. You might say no. There it was. Might say no. My daughter had decided my consent was an inconvenience. So you took away my chance to decide. I was desperate, and desperation gave you ownership of my property. No. But you behaved as if it did. She cried quietly. I am sorry. I believed she was sorry. That was the terrible part. I believed she loved me too. People like to imagine betrayal comes from people who feel nothing for us. Sometimes it comes from someone who loves you and still decides their emergency matters more than your right to say no. Where is Eric? At work. Does he know you're talking to me? No. Tell him I know everything. Mom, please don't call anyone yet. I'm going to call whoever has my ring. If you do that, they may declare the whole loan in default. You just said it's already overdue. We're negotiating. With my property. I know. No, Lauren. You keep saying you know, but if you understood, you would have told me before I had to walk into that office myself. She was silent. Then she said something that sounded almost like the little girl she'd once been. Please help me. 3 words. For 39 years, those words had been enough. Please help me. I had solved school problems, paid bills, watched Emily, written checks, smoothed arguments, made things easier. My instinct rose immediately. How much would it cost? Could I pay the lender? Could I get James's ring back today? Then I remembered something. If we erase every consequence, how does she learn which choices hurt James? I could almost hear him. I opened my eyes. I need to think. There's no time. That's your emergency, Lauren. You don't get to turn it into my decision without giving me time to think. Mom, I'll call you later. I ended the call. For several minutes I sat in the parking lot. My ring was still somewhere out there. It hadn't been sold yet. That was the good news. The bad news was worse than I'd imagined. Lauren hadn't misplaced it. She hadn't accidentally lost it. She had looked at the ring her father gave me, calculated what it might be worth, and decided it could solve a problem in her marriage. Then she had lied because she knew I might say no. I looked down at my hand. For the first time I understood exactly what had been taken from me. It wasn't only James's ring. It was my right to choose. And getting one of those things back might be much easier than getting the other. By the time I drove home from Cavalier, I had already calculated how easily I could make the problem disappear. $45,000. That was a great deal of money, but I had it. James and I had spent our lives being careful. My hospital pension covered most of my monthly expenses. Social Security covered the rest. The house was paid off. There was money in retirement accounts and a separate emergency fund that James had insisted we maintain. I could call Lauren. I could ask for Mark Collins's number. I could pay whatever amount was necessary to release the collateral. By dinner, perhaps James's ring could be on my finger again. Lauren would cry. She would apologize. Eric would promise to repay me. Everyone would be relieved. The crisis would end. That was exactly how it had always worked. And that was precisely why I didn't make the call. I sat at my kitchen table with my checkbook in front of me for almost an hour. $45,000 wasn't worth losing my daughter over. But then another thought came. Was I losing Lauren over $45,000? Or had Lauren risked losing me because asking permission might have resulted in the word no? Those were not the same thing. Around 6 that evening, my doorbell rang. Lauren stood outside. Eric was beside her. I had expected this. What surprised me was how tired Eric looked. He had always been broad-shouldered and energetic, the kind of man who filled a room without trying. That evening his shirt was wrinkled, and there were dark circles beneath his eyes. "Can we come in?" Lauren asked. I stepped aside. We went into the living room. Lauren sat on the sofa. Eric remained standing. "I know you went to Cavalier," he said. "I did," Lauren told me. "I assume she also told you that I know about the loan." He nodded. I looked at him. "Did you know the ring was mine?" Eric didn't hesitate. "Yes." Lauren looked at him sharply. At least he hadn't lied. "From the beginning." "Yes." "Did you know she told me she needed it for photographs?" His face tightened. "I knew about the photo shoot. That isn't what I asked." He looked at the floor. "Yes." I felt something inside me harden. "So you both knew." "Victoria," he said, "I told her it was a bad idea." Lauren turned toward him. "Eric." "You did it anyway," I said. He nodded. "Yes." "Why?" He sat in the chair across from me. "Because I panicked." Finally, a simple answer. No manipulation. No polished explanation. Just panic. Eric rubbed his hands together. "The project in Henrico was supposed to put us in the strongest position we'd been in for years. I hired additional crews, ordered custom materials, took on another smaller job because I thought the cash flow would overlap. But it didn't." "No." "What happened?" "The homeowners changed specifications halfway through. Then there were inspection delays. They started disputing change orders. Their attorney advised them to withhold a major payment." "How major enough?" "That's not a number." He swallowed. $183,000. I stared at him. Lauren looked away. Eric continued. "That doesn't mean we lost that amount. Some of it is still legally owed. But when it stopped coming in, everything behind it stopped moving. Suppliers. Yes. Payroll. Yes. Loans. Yes." For several seconds I couldn't answer Daniel Whitmore. I had spent the last 2 weeks wondering where my ring was. Now a stranger was telling me it was sitting in front of him, and apparently someone wanted to take it apart. "Mrs. Thomas." "Yes." "Are you still there?" "Yes." My voice barely sounded like mine. "You asked whether I authorized someone to remove the diamond." "Yes, ma'am." "No." There was a pause. "Absolutely not." "All right. What do you mean, remove it?" Daniel's voice remained calm. "I don't want to alarm you unnecessarily. Let me explain what happened." "Please do." "An intermediary brought the ring into my store this afternoon. He wanted us to verify the center stone and confirm the grading information before the stone was separated from the mounting." I closed my eyes. Separated from the mounting. Such clean language for destroying the object James had placed on my hand. Why would they do that? Loose stones and settings are sometimes sold separately. Depending on the buyer and the piece, it can make financial sense. Not to me. I understand. Who brought it? I need to be careful about what information I disclose until I understand the ownership situation. I own it. I believe you. That stopped me. You believe me, yes. How another pause. Because I've seen this ring before. I sat completely still. What do you mean your husband brought it here? The room seemed to change around me. My husband, James Thomas. Hearing his name from a stranger always did something to me. For one instant, James stopped being a memory and became a person who had once walked into this man's store, spoken to him, handed him something. When? About 8 years ago. I frowned. That doesn't make sense. Why, James never told me he took the ring anywhere. He may not have intended to. I looked down at my empty finger. What did he do? Before we get into that, I need to verify a few details. All right. Daniel asked me to describe the ring. I did. The shape of the center diamond, the smaller stones, the width of the band. Then he asked whether I knew of any identifying mark inside it. The manufacturer's mark. Anything else? No. Would you mind telling me approximately when you received it, our 25th anniversary? What year? I told him. Where did Mr. Thomas purchase it? I don't know. He surprised me. Daniel was quiet. Then he said, he purchased it from my father. I covered my mouth. Whitmore and Sons. Suddenly the name sounded faintly familiar. James must have mentioned it decades earlier, but I couldn't retrieve the memory. My father ran the store then, Daniel continued. I was already working with him. I remember your husband. You remember James after all these years? He came back more than once. That surprised me. For what maintenance initially? Inspection. Cleaning. Later something more specific. What I'd rather show you in person. My frustration rose. Mr. Whitmore. I've spent 2 weeks being told half-truths. Please don't give me another one. His voice softened. That's fair. He took a breath. 8 years ago, your husband asked us to add a microscopic identification inscription inside the band. I frowned. What kind of inscription? A serial sequence tied to our customer records. It's extremely small. You wouldn't notice it without magnification. Why he wanted a way to establish the ring's provenance if necessary. Provenance. I had heard the word before, usually about art or antiques. A documented history of ownership. Why would James think that was necessary? That is something he wanted you to understand from him, not from me. I felt a chill. What does that mean? Daniel hesitated. Mr. Thomas left something here. I gripped the phone. What, an envelope? My eyes filled immediately. An envelope, yes. For who? For you. I couldn't speak. Daniel continued carefully. It has remained in our private records all these years. Your husband gave specific instructions. What instructions? If the ring ever returned to our store under circumstances that suggested you were not the person controlling its sale, transfer, or alteration, I was to contact you. I stood without realizing it. James said that, yes. Why, I think you should read his words yourself. My heart was pounding. Does the envelope say anything on the outside? Yes. What? Daniel paused, then he read it. For Victoria, if this ring ever comes back without her. I pressed my hand against my mouth. For a moment I wasn't 68. I was standing in that Italian restaurant again, watching James open a velvet box. Everything we built when nobody was watching. Tears blurred the room. Mrs. Thomas. I'm here, I'm sorry. I know this must be difficult. How did the ring get from the lender to you? I don't know every detail. The man who brought it in works with asset disposition. My understanding is that the piece was submitted for verification before the next stage of a potential sale, so they were going to sell it. It appears someone was preparing for that possibility because the loan is overdue. Daniel didn't answer directly. You know about the loan, yes. Then you should speak with whoever controls that transaction. My role is limited to the jewelry. I sat back down. Have you done anything to it? No. Is the diamond still in the setting? Yes. Is the ring damaged? Not that I can see. I released a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Thank God. We have stopped all work. Can they force you to continue? Not while there is a credible ownership dispute that needs clarification. I made it clear I would not alter the piece until the situation was resolved. I closed my eyes. For the first time since this began, I felt something resembling relief. The ring still existed, whole. James's diamond was still where he'd placed it. When can I come? Whenever you're comfortable. We're open until 6. I looked at the clock. It was shortly after 4. I can be there in 30 minutes. I'll be waiting. Before he hung up, I asked Mr. Whitmore. Yes, did James tell you he thought someone would steal my ring? No. His answer came firmly. That mattered. I wasn't predicting a crime, Mrs. Thomas. Then what was he doing? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Protecting something he believed mattered to you. I swallowed. The ring. Maybe more than the ring. Then we ended the call. I sat there staring at my phone. 8 years. 8 years earlier, James had walked into a jewelry store and done something I knew nothing about. He had marked the ring, registered it, left me a letter, and created instructions for a situation that now seemed frighteningly close to what was happening. My first impulse was to call Lauren. I didn't. Not yet. I wanted to hear James before I heard another explanation from anyone else. I went upstairs and changed my blouse because the one I was wearing had tear stains near the collar. While standing at the mirror, I looked at myself. My face seemed older than it had 2 weeks earlier. I touched my wedding band. 8 years ago, I whispered. James had been 63 then, healthy, still working, still complaining that nobody loaded the dishwasher correctly except him. Why would he have thought about protecting my ring? A memory surfaced. 8 years earlier was around the time Lauren and Eric had faced that tax problem with the business. James and I had helped them. I remembered an argument afterward. Not with Lauren, between James and me. He had said we needed clearer boundaries. I'd accused him of being too suspicious. Their family, I'd said. James had answered. That's why boundaries matter. At the time, I'd dismissed it. Now the memory unsettled me. I grabbed my purse and the folder containing the ring photographs and insurance documents. The drive to Whitmore & Sons took 27 minutes. The store was in an older shopping district in Richmond, tucked between a men's clothing shop and a small bookstore. The sign above the door was understated. Whitmore & Sons, Fine Jewelers Est, 1958. I sat in the parking lot for a moment. Then I went inside. A bell sounded softly above the door. The store smelled faintly of polished wood. Glass cases lined the walls. An older man with silver hair emerged from behind a counter. The moment he saw me, his expression changed. Victoria Thomas. Yes. He came around the counter. Daniel Whitmore. We shook hands. Thank you for calling me. I'm glad I did. He gestured toward a private consultation room. Come with me. My legs felt strangely weak. Inside was a wooden table beneath a bright examination lamp, and on a square of dark blue velvet sat my ring. I stopped breathing. There it was. James's ring. My ring. Whole. For a moment I couldn't move. Then I reached toward it. Daniel gently raised a hand. Before you touch it, there are a couple of things I need to document. I nodded. Of course. He photographed the ring where it lay. Then he put on gloves and lifted it beneath the examination lamp. Using a small magnifying device, he turned the inside of the band toward me. Look here. I leaned closer. At first I saw nothing. Then the magnification caught a tiny series of letters and numbers, VT25JT, followed by a longer numerical sequence. My throat tightened. VT Victoria Thomas. 25. Your anniversary. JT. James Thomas. I closed my eyes briefly. Of course. James had turned even a security mark into something sentimental. Daniel opened a file. The rest corresponds to our internal registration. He showed me a copy of a record dated 8 years earlier. James's signature was at the bottom. I knew that handwriting instantly. Seeing it felt like being struck. He really did this. Yes. Daniel closed the file. Then he reached into a locked drawer. When his hand came back out, he was holding a cream-colored envelope. My name was written across the front. Victoria. James's handwriting. Not printed, not copied. Written by the man I had buried 3 years earlier. My hands began trembling. Daniel placed it on the table between us. He told me he hoped you'd never need this. I stared at the envelope. What did he know? Daniel shook his head gently. Not what you're thinking. What am I thinking? That he somehow knew this exact thing would happen. I looked at him. He didn't. Then why? Daniel glanced at the ring. Because your husband understood something about love that sometimes takes the rest of us much longer to learn. I looked down at James's handwriting. Daniel slid the envelope toward me. This belongs to you. I put my fingers on it. For the first time since James died, I was about to receive words from him I had never heard before. And somehow, 8 years earlier, my husband had known there might come a day when I would need them. And your solution was my ring. No. His answer came quickly. My solution was supposed to be a bridge loan, with my ring attached to it. I know. Then don't separate the two. He nodded. You're right. Lauren shifted beside him. Mom, nobody planned this. I looked at her. You didn't accidentally sign paperwork. Her face flushed. We thought it would be 30 days. And Eric had another receivable coming from a different project. Eric spoke. That payment was delayed too, so you missed the deadline. Yes. How much do you owe now? Eric hesitated. Just under 48,000 with fees. I absorbed that. Lauren leaned toward me. If we can clear that, we can get the collateral released. There it was. The reason they had come. Not simply to apologize, to ask me to solve it. How much money do you want from me? Lauren's eyes filled. We're not asking you to give it to us. What are you asking a loan? I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because calling it a loan made the pattern feel respectable. How would you repay me when the Henrico dispute settles? And if it doesn't, it will. You don't know that. Eric's attorney thinks I asked what happens if it doesn't. She went quiet. Eric answered. We'd repay you monthly. With what income, I'd figure it out. I leaned back. There it was again. Future money. Future solutions. Future promises being used to justify today's decisions. I looked at Lauren. Why didn't you ask me before I told you? No. You said I would ask questions. She lowered her eyes. Because I was ashamed. That answer felt more truthful. But all of it. She gestured around as though the entire life she'd built was sitting in my living room. You and Dad always thought we spent too much. We worried. You judged, sometimes. You warned us about the house, about the business, about everything. Your father warned you. You agreed with him. Often. She wiped her eyes. I couldn't come to you and say he'd been right. I felt a strange sadness. So instead you took something from me. I thought I could fix everything before you knew. And then what? She looked confused. If the loan had been repaid, would you ever have told me? She didn't answer. That hurt more than I expected. No, I said softly. You wouldn't have. Mom, you would have returned the ring, told me it had been cleaned, and let me believe nothing happened. I would have protected you from worrying. No. You would have protected yourself from accountability. Eric looked down. Lauren began crying. I said I'm sorry. I know. What else do you want? The truth? You have it. I want you to understand why this isn't solved by me writing a check. Her expression changed. Fear. Are you saying you won't help? I haven't decided what I'm going to do. We don't have time for that. My eyes narrowed. You don't get to say that to me. I'm not trying to pressure you. Yes, you are, because the lender can liquidate the collateral. I know. That means Dad's ring. My ring. She flinched. My ring, I repeated. Fine. Your ring. Isn't that exactly why we need to fix this? I stared at her. Something about the logic disturbed me. Lauren had taken my property, used it without permission, created the emergency, and now the possibility of losing that same property was being used to force me to rescue her. I stood. No. Lauren froze. What? I am not giving you $48,000 tonight. Her face went pale. Mom. I said no. You can afford it. The words came out before she could stop them. Silence. Eric closed his eyes. Lauren immediately looked ashamed. I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did. I meant this won't ruin you. I almost couldn't believe her. And that makes it acceptable, no. Then why mention what I can afford? Because we're desperate. And desperation keeps becoming your permission. She stood too. What do you want us to do? Lose the company. I want you to stop making me responsible for saving it. Emily lives in that house. Don't use Emily. I'm not using her. You brought up your daughter the moment your business argument stopped working. Lauren stared. Eric stood. She's right. Lauren turned on him. Whose side are you on? There shouldn't be sides. You're letting her act like I did this alone. I already told her I agreed. After I found the financing, because you were falling apart, I know. Their voices rose. Enough, I said. They both stopped. I looked at Eric. You knew it was wrong. Yes. You still agreed. Yes. Then you're responsible. I looked at Lauren. You took it. Tears ran down her face. You're responsible too. I was trying to save my family, and I am part of your family. That silenced her. I continued. You were willing to risk something precious to me because you believed your emergency mattered more than my consent. Lauren shook her head. You're twisting it. No. I'm finally saying it plainly. Her expression hardened. Then she said the one thing I knew had been waiting inside her. If Dad were alive, he would help me. My chest tightened. For a moment, James seemed present in the room. Not literally. In memory. At the kitchen table years earlier. She never has to finish falling. I looked at my daughter. Maybe he would. Lauren blinked, apparently surprised. But your father isn't here. Her face crumpled. And I am. I took a breath. And you stole from me. Lauren stared at me as if I'd slapped her. Don't call me a thief. What word would make you more comfortable, Mom? You took my ring under false pretenses. You used it for a financial transaction I never approved. Then you lied repeatedly because you knew I might stop you. I was going to return it. That doesn't erase what you did. She grabbed her purse. I can't believe you. Eric touched her arm. Lauren. She pulled away. No. If she wants to watch us lose everything, let her. I didn't say that. You don't have to. She walked toward the door. I followed. Before leaving, she turned. I hope that ring is worth it. The words struck me harder than I expected. I wanted to call her back. I wanted to say I would pay. I wanted the pain in her face to disappear. But I stayed where I was. Eric paused at the door. I'm sorry, Victoria. So am I. He followed his wife outside. I watched their car leave. Then I closed the door. Only when I was alone did I cry. Not because I regretted saying no. Because for the first time in my life, saying no to my daughter felt like risking the relationship itself. I sat on the sofa and covered my face. For almost 40 years, I'd believed a good mother prevented her child from falling. Now I was beginning to wonder whether loving Lauren meant allowing her to feel the ground. My phone rang. I nearly ignored it. The number wasn't familiar. Richmond area code. I wiped my face and answered. Hello, a man's voice spoke. May I speak with Victoria Thomas? This is Victoria. My name is Daniel Whitmore. I own Whitmore and Sons Jewelers. I sat straighter. I believe I have something here that belongs to you. My heart stopped. What a diamond anniversary ring. I couldn't speak. Then Daniel asked the question that would change everything. Mrs. Thomas, did you authorize anyone to remove the diamond from your wedding ring? For almost a minute, I couldn't open the envelope. My fingers rested on James's handwriting while Daniel Whitmore sat quietly across from me. Victoria. Just my first name. James had written it thousands of times during our marriage. Birthday cards, grocery lists, notes left beside the coffee maker. Once when I was 56 and had forgotten my lunch before work, he'd driven all the way to the hospital just to leave a paper bag at the front desk with a note that said, Victoria, apparently, I married a woman who can organize an entire hospital department but cannot remember a sandwich. I had kept that note for years. Now I was holding words he'd written knowing there was a possibility I wouldn't read them until he was gone. Take your time, Daniel said. I looked up. Did you read it? No. Never know. You kept it for 8 years without knowing what was inside. Daniel smiled faintly. Your husband was very specific. That sounded like James. I slid my finger beneath the flap. Inside was one folded sheet of cream stationery. Nothing else. I unfolded it. The handwriting was unmistakable. My Victoria. If you're reading this, then something happened that I hoped never would. I stopped. My eyes blurred. Daniel quietly stood. I'll give you some privacy. Thank you. He left the consultation room and closed the door. I looked back at the letter. I don't know what brought the ring back here without you. Maybe it was lost. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. Maybe someone made a choice they shouldn't have made. I'm not going to pretend I can predict the future. That sentence released something inside me. James hadn't known. He hadn't suspected some elaborate betrayal. I wasn't speaking from beyond the grave with magical knowledge of what Lauren would someday do. He had simply prepared for uncertainty. I kept reading. But I know you. You have spent your life believing that loving someone means making their pain lighter, even when carrying it makes your own life heavier. I covered my mouth. That was James. Direct, gentle, and irritatingly accurate. I remembered arguments we'd had over Lauren. Every time she needed money, I had a reason. Every time James suggested boundaries, I had called him too rigid. He had never stopped loving our daughter. He had simply understood that love and rescue were not identical. The letter continued. There may come a day when someone you love makes you choose between saving them and protecting something that matters to you. If that day comes, please remember this. Love does not require surrender. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to protect what is yours. You are allowed to let another adult carry the consequences of an adult decision. None of those things make you cruel. I had to stop reading. My shoulders shook. For 3 years I had missed James in enormous ways. His voice, his hand against my back when we crossed a street, the weight of him beside me in bed. But sometimes I missed him most in moments when I needed someone to tell me I was wrong. James had been good at that, not cruelly. He simply loved me enough not to agree with me automatically. I wiped my eyes and continued. As for this ring, it belongs to you. Not Lauren. Not anyone else. You. What you eventually choose to do with it is your decision. If you give it away someday, I hope you do it freely. If you wear it until you're 99, I hope you do that freely too. I smiled through my tears. 99. James always insisted I would outlive everyone. Then came the final paragraph. The ring was never valuable because of the diamond. It was valuable because of the years behind it. Don't let anyone convince you that protecting those years means you love them less. Whatever brought you here, trust yourself. You were always stronger than you thought. Love, James. I lowered the letter. The room was silent. On the table beneath the examination lamp, my ring caught the light. For 2 weeks I had been terrified of losing that diamond. Now James's words made me realize the diamond had never been the center of the problem. Consent was choice, respect, the right to say no without being told that no meant I didn't love my daughter. I folded the letter carefully. Then I cried. Not loudly, not dramatically. I simply sat in that small room and let grief move through me. Eventually, Daniel knocked gently. May I come in? Yes. He returned and sat across from me. Are you all right, No? Then I smiled slightly. But I think I will be. He nodded. I looked at the ring. Tell me exactly what James did 8 years ago. Daniel pulled the file closer. He brought the ring in for routine inspection first. Did something happen not to the ring? What made him create the identification record? Daniel hesitated. I can only tell you what he told me. Please. He said there had been a financial situation involving your daughter and son-in-law. I knew immediately. The tax problem. I didn't give details. We helped them. Daniel nodded. Your husband said he'd begun thinking about family property differently. How he was concerned about assumptions. What assumptions that things belonging to parents eventually become things belonging to children? I looked down. Daniel continued. He said there was nothing wrong with inheritance, but there was something dangerous about treating a future inheritance like present ownership. My chest tightened. That sounded exactly like James. He specifically mentioned Lauren, yes, but not as someone he believed would steal from you. I appreciated the distinction. He loved her, I said. It was obvious. Daniel opened the record. He said you and he had spent years helping her. He worried that generosity could accidentally create expectation. I remembered the checks, the down payment, the debts, the emergencies. Why the ring? Because it mattered to you and because jewelry is easy to move. Daniel pointed to the serial record. He asked us to create a discrete provenance identifier. If the ring ever came back to us for resale, alteration, or evaluation under questionable circumstances, the record would help establish its history. Is that common? Not exactly this arrangement, but identifying valuable jewelry is not unusual. And the letter, that was personal. He smiled faintly. Your husband came back about a week after we completed the inscription. He handed me the envelope. What did he say? Daniel thought for a moment. He said, if Victoria ever needs this, she'll probably be angry with me for being right. I laughed. Actually laughed. For the first time in days. That sounds like him. I suspected it might. Then my smile faded. Can I take the ring home? Daniel became serious. That's where things become complicated. My stomach tightened. Why? Because the person who brought it here represents a party claiming a financial interest in it. But it's mine, and your documentation appears to support that. Then why can't you hand it to me? I don't want to mishandle evidence in what may become an ownership dispute. I understood. I didn't like it. But I understood. What happens next? I've already informed the intermediary that alteration is suspended because a third party has asserted ownership. Then they sell it not through me while the dispute is unresolved. Could they take it somewhere else? That's something your attorney should address immediately. The word attorney made everything feel heavier. I don't want Lauren arrested. I didn't say anything about criminal charges. I know. Mrs. Thomas, protecting your ownership and deciding what consequences you want for your daughter are not necessarily the same decision. That stayed with me. Protecting myself did not automatically mean destroying Lauren. I had been thinking as though there were only two choices: rescue her completely or punish her completely. Maybe there was another way. Who brought the ring here? Daniel paused. Mark Collins. I recognized the name. Lauren had mentioned him. The lender's representative. Yes. Can you contact him? I already have. What did he say? He wants documentation. I have insurance records. And we have the provenance record. My eyes moved to James's signature. For the first time, I understood why that tiny inscription mattered. It wasn't a secret fortune. It wasn't a legal trick. It was simply evidence. Evidence that the ring had belonged to me long before Lauren ever carried it into a collateral office. Will that be enough? It will be significant. I looked at the ring again. What happens to the loan? That is a separate matter. Lauren still owes it. As far as I understand, yes. And if my ring is removed from the collateral, they may pursue whatever rights they have under the agreement regarding the remaining collateral and borrowers, meaning Lauren and Eric would still have a problem. Their problem, not mine. That distinction felt both liberating and terrifying. I folded James's letter and placed it back in the envelope. I want a meeting. With Mr. Collins. Yes. And your daughter. I hesitated, then nodded. Lauren and Eric too. Daniel studied me. Are you sure? No. I looked at James's ring beneath the bright white light. But I'm done having separate conversations where everyone tells me only the part they want me to know. Daniel nodded. I'll contact Mr. Collins. I stood. Before leaving, I asked to see the ring one more time. Daniel slid the velvet pad toward me. This time he allowed me to touch it. I picked it up. The familiar weight rested in my palm. For 18 years, that ring had represented my marriage. Now it represented something else too. A boundary. I placed it back carefully. I'll be back for you, I whispered. On the drive home, I didn't call Lauren. I didn't call Eric. I drove with James's letter in my purse and his words repeating in my mind. Love does not require surrender. I thought I already knew the worst thing Lauren had done. She had borrowed my ring and used it as collateral. But I was wrong. Because when we finally sat down with Mark Collins and looked at the paperwork Lauren had signed, I would discover that she hadn't merely used my ring. She had told them it belonged to her, and the photographs she'd borrowed it for had helped her prove the lie. The meeting took place 2 days later in a private conference room at Whitmore and Sons. I arrived first. That was deliberate. I didn't want to walk into a room where Lauren and Eric were already sitting together whispering, preparing whatever explanation they thought I needed to hear. Daniel met me near the entrance. How are you holding up? I've had better weeks. He gave me a sympathetic smile. The ring is secure. Thank you. That mattered more than I could explain. Not because I suddenly believed the ring was the most important thing in the world. James's letter had already reminded me it wasn't. But knowing nobody had removed the diamond gave me enough calm to focus on everything else. Daniel led me into the conference room. A few minutes later, Mark Collins arrived. He was younger than I'd expected, perhaps 45, wearing a navy suit and carrying a leather portfolio. Mrs. Thomas. He offered his hand. Mark Collins. I know who you are. He nodded. I understand. He wasn't rude. If anything, he seemed uncomfortable. That surprised me. I had imagined the lender's representative as some predatory man waiting to sell my jewelry. The reality was more complicated. Mark opened his portfolio but didn't remove anything yet. I want to say before the others arrive that our firm takes disputed ownership seriously. Did you take ownership seriously before accepting my ring? His jaw tightened. We relied on documentation and representations made by the borrower. Representations. Daniel had used that word too. What representations? Mark glanced toward the door. I think it's better if we discuss that with everyone present. I didn't like the answer. But this time I waited. Lauren and Eric arrived 7 minutes late. Lauren walked in first. The moment she saw me, she stopped. Mom. I nodded. Eric looked exhausted. Victoria. No one hugged. We sat around the table. Daniel remained because his store was holding the ring and because his records had become relevant to the ownership question. Mark opened the meeting. We're here because Mrs. Thomas has asserted ownership of an item pledged in connection with a private bridge financing agreement executed by Lauren and Eric Bennett. Pledged. Another polite word. I looked at Lauren. She kept her eyes on the table. Mark continued. Based on information Mr. Whitmore provided, there is substantial evidence that the ring belonged to Mrs. Thomas before the transaction. Substantial, I asked. It belonged to me for 18 years. I understand. Then say that. Mark paused. The documentation appears consistent with your claim of ownership. Lauren shifted. I looked at her. What did you tell them? She didn't answer. Mark did. Mrs. Bennett represented that the ring was her property. I thought I was prepared. I wasn't. What Lauren finally looked at me. Mom, no. Let him finish. Mark removed several pages from his portfolio. He placed one in front of me. Near the bottom was Lauren's signature. I recognized it. Above it was a declaration stating that assets submitted as collateral were owned by the borrower or legally authorized for use. I read it twice. Then I looked at my daughter. You signed this. Lauren's face was pale. Yes. You told them my ring belonged to you. It wasn't that simple. The phrase made anger flash through me. It looks remarkably simple in writing. Victoria Eric said, let her explain. I turned to him. You knew about this. His silence told me enough. Did you? Yes. I looked back at Mark. How did you verify ownership? Mark took out another document. There was an appraisal obtained through Cavalier. That establishes value. Not ownership. Correct. So what else? He hesitated. Lauren closed her eyes, and suddenly I knew there was something worse coming. Mark opened a folder containing printed photographs. He turned them toward me. For a moment I didn't understand. Then I recognized them. The anniversary photographs. Lauren and Eric smiling together. Lauren's hand resting on Eric's chest. My diamond ring beside her wedding band. Another photograph showed Lauren seated beside me at the studio. I had forgotten that she'd asked me to stop by near the end of the session. I had been there less than 20 minutes. Michael had taken a few mother-daughter photographs because Lauren said she wanted them. In one, our hands were together. My ring was on Lauren's finger. I felt cold. Why do you have these? Mark answered carefully. They were submitted as supporting context when questions arose about the difference between the name on an older appraisal reference and Mrs. Bennett's ownership statement. I looked at Lauren. What did you say, Mom? What did you tell them these photographs meant? Tears filled her eyes. I said you'd given me the ring. The room disappeared for a second, not literally, but everything beyond Lauren's face seemed to lose focus. You said what? That it had been passed down. I stared at her. For the photographs. I know. You borrowed my ring for photographs. She started crying. I know. And then you used those same photographs to make strangers believe I'd given it to you. I was desperate. I pushed my chair back and stood. Daniel shifted as though he might say something. I raised a hand. I need a minute. I walked to the far side of the room. There was a framed photograph on the wall showing the Whitmore storefront sometime in the 1960s. I stared at it without seeing it. The photo shoot, the sentimental explanation, 3 generations of love. James would have loved this. Every phrase returned differently now. Had Lauren planned it from the beginning? That question was almost worse than the lie itself. I turned around. When you came to my kitchen and asked for the ring, had you already decided to use it for the loan? Lauren shook her head immediately. No, tell me the truth. I am. Because this is the last opportunity I'm giving you to make me believe anything you say. Her face crumpled. No. The photo shoot was real. It had been booked for months. Then when she wiped her cheeks. After the Monday after the shoot. The same Monday she'd taken the ring to Cavalier. Explain. Eric looked at her. Lauren took a shaking breath. We'd already been talking about the bridge financing. Mark's firm needed additional collateral. Mark interrupted. To be clear, our firm didn't instruct anyone to obtain property from a third party. I understand, I said. My eyes stayed on Lauren. Continue. We had Eric's equipment and another asset, but it wasn't enough. What other asset? Our second vehicle. I nodded. And then I had your ring. The words were quiet. You had my ring. Yes. And you thought it could solve the difference. I thought it would be temporary. Did you know its value? Not exactly. But you asked me what James paid. She looked down. That memory cut through me. My kitchen. Lauren holding the ring beneath the light. Did Dad ever tell you what he paid? At the time it had sounded like curiosity. Now it sounded like evaluation. You asked about insurance too. I know. Was that before or after you thought about using it? Lauren hesitated. Lauren. Before I fully decided. My stomach turned. So the thought was already there. Yes. Eric spoke. Victoria, I told her we shouldn't do it. I looked at him. And then he lowered his eyes. Then I let fear make me agree. At least he didn't pretend otherwise. I turned back to Lauren. Why the photographs? The lender questioned whether the ring was mine because the insurance information wasn't in my name. So you gave them photographs? Yes. What exactly did you say? Lauren could barely look at me. I said it had been an anniversary gift from Dad to you, and that you'd passed it to me, while I was alive. Yes. Without asking me. Yes. And you used a photograph of me standing beside you as evidence. She nodded. I sat down slowly. The theft hurt. The lies hurt. But this felt different. Lauren had taken a moment I believed was about family and turned it into proof against me. I remembered standing in that studio beside her. She'd put her arm around me. Michael had asked us to place our hands together. Lauren had laughed and said, "Look at us. 3 generations of rings someday." I'd smiled. I had been helping create the evidence of a gift I'd never made. I looked at Mark. Would those photographs alone have established ownership? Numb. Then why accept them? They were not the sole basis. They were supporting material accompanying signed representations from the borrowers. Representations that were false. Mark chose his words carefully. Based on what we know now, the ownership statement appears inaccurate. Inaccurate, I almost laughed. My daughter lied. No one contradicted me. I looked at Lauren. You didn't just borrow my ring, she cried silently. You borrowed my trust, Mom. And then you used it as evidence against me. That broke her. She covered her face. Eric put a hand on her shoulder. For a moment I felt the familiar instinct. Go to her. Comfort her. Tell everyone we could fix this. Then I remembered the letter inside my purse. Love does not require surrender. I turned to Mark. What happens now? We need a formal statement from Mrs. Bennet acknowledging that she did not own the ring and had no authorization to pledge it. Lauren looked up, and the loan Mark's expression became serious. The loan remains your responsibility. Her face went white. If the ring is removed from the collateral package, then the remaining obligations and remedies under the agreement still apply. Eric leaned forward. What remedies? We'll discuss those separately. I looked at Lauren. For the first time, she seemed to understand what was happening. The ring might return to me, but the debt would not disappear with it. For years, every family crisis had ended when James or I stepped in. This one wasn't going to. Lauren looked at me with frightened eyes. Mom, what are we supposed to do? It was the question she'd been asking me her entire life, and for the first time, I didn't answer it for her. Lauren looked at me as if I had become someone she didn't recognize. Mom, what are we supposed to do? For 39 years, that question had activated something automatic inside me. Fix it. When she was 8 and forgot her science project, I drove it to school. When she was 19 and overdrew her checking account, I transferred money before the fees multiplied. When she was 24 and buried herself under credit card bills, James and I helped clear them. When adulthood became too expensive, too frightening, or too complicated, I had always found a way to soften the landing. Now I sat across from her in Daniel Whitmore's conference room and said the hardest thing I'd ever said to my daughter. I don't know. Lauren blinked. I don't know what you're supposed to do. Her face tightened. But you can help us. There it was. Not a question, a conclusion. I looked at Mark Collins. What needs to happen for my ring to be formally removed from this transaction? Mark opened the paperwork. Mrs. Bennet needs to execute a statement acknowledging that the ring was not gifted to her, that she had no ownership interest in it, and that she did not have authorization to pledge or transfer it. And then, we document the disputed asset as withdrawn from the collateral package. Mr. Whitmore retains it until the ownership documentation is complete. How long if everyone cooperates? Not long. Lauren stared at me. You're actually doing this? I turned toward her. Yes. And then what happens to us? Mark answered before I could. The remaining loan remains due. Eric leaned forward. With the ring removed, does that trigger anything immediately? We'll have to evaluate the remaining collateral and the existing default, meaning the lender may pursue remedies available under the agreement. Lauren looked at me. You hear that? I do. We could lose the business. I understand. Our car is part of the collateral. I heard him. And you're just sitting there. I felt my pulse increase. What would you like me to do? She stared at me as if the answer were obvious. Pay it. The room became very quiet. Even Mark looked down. How much? I asked. Lauren glanced at Eric. He answered, with the additional fees, just under $48,000. And you want me to write a check for $48,000. We'd pay you back. When the Henrico payment clears. And if it doesn't? It will, Lauren said. You've said that before. Eric rubbed his forehead. We can set up a repayment plan. With what? My income. From the company you're telling me might fail. He looked down. I wasn't trying to humiliate him. I simply wanted them to hear the contradictions they had been asking me to ignore. Lauren leaned toward me. You have the money. I looked at her. She immediately regretted saying it. Again. That's the second time you've reminded me of that. Because it's true. So $48,000 won't destroy your life, and losing it won't fix yours. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. I continued. You're talking about my savings, as if the only question is whether I can survive without them. That's not what I mean. Then what do you mean? I mean you're my mother. There it was. The argument beneath every other argument. Mother. As if the word came with an unlimited line of credit. I glanced at Daniel. The envelope containing James's letter was inside my purse beside my chair. I didn't need to open it. I knew the words. You are allowed to let another adult carry the consequences of an adult decision. I looked at Lauren. I am your mother. Tears filled her eyes. Then help me. I am trying to. She laughed bitterly. By letting us lose everything? No. By refusing to pretend this happened to you. She stared at me. You made choices. I pointed gently toward the documents. You and Eric borrowed money. You pledged assets. You used property that didn't belong to you. You missed the deadline. We were desperate. I believe you. Then why are you acting like you don't care? Because caring and paying are not the same thing. Lauren shook her head. You sound like Dad. The words hurt. But this time she wasn't using James as a weapon. She sounded defeated. Maybe I finally understand him. Eric leaned forward. Victoria, I want to say something. I looked at him. This isn't your responsibility. Lauren turned. Eric. He ignored her. I should have stopped it. Yes, I knew the ring was yours. I knew using it was wrong. Yes, I was scared. I know. And I let Lauren convince me we'd fix it before you found out. Lauren stared at him. Don't make this sound like it was all me. I'm not. It was your business. I know. Your debt. Our debt. You were the one who said we'd lose everything. And I was wrong to let that become an excuse. For the first time since this began, I saw something in Eric I hadn't seen in Lauren yet. Acceptance. Not of the financial outcome. Of responsibility. He looked at me. If the company fails, that's on me. Lauren stood. Are you serious? Eric looked up at her. Yes. What about Emily? We take care of Emily. With what I get a job if I have to. You have a company. I may not after this. Lauren's face crumpled. So that's it. We just give up no. We deal with what actually exists. Mark cleared his throat gently. I think the family discussion may be better continued privately. Mrs. Bennett, I do need your signature if you're prepared to correct the ownership representation. Lauren looked at the paper. For several seconds she didn't move. Then she sat down. Mark placed the statement in front of her. She read it. Her hand trembled. When she picked up the pen, she looked at me. If I sign this, you're really not going to help with the loan. I didn't say I'll never help you with anything again. That's not what I asked. No. My throat tightened. I am not paying this debt. Her eyes hardened. She signed. The sound of the pen moving across paper seemed impossibly loud. Mark collected the statement. I'll begin the correction process today. Daniel nodded. I'll continue holding the ring securely. Lauren stood immediately. Can we go now, Eric rose? I stood too. Mark and Daniel left us alone for a moment. Lauren picked up her purse. You're choosing a piece of jewelry over your family. I felt something in me settle. Not anger. Clarity. Sit down. I don't want another lecture. Then don't call my ring the reason this happened. She stared at me. I reached into my purse and took out the photograph I'd brought earlier, the one from my 25th anniversary. James and I were sitting together. The ring was new on my hand. I placed it on the table. This is what you think I'm protecting. Lauren looked at the photograph. I'm protecting my right to decide what happens to something that belongs to me. She looked away. I continued. If you had asked to borrow $48,000, I might have said yes. Her eyes returned to mine. I might have said no. That was exactly the problem, she whispered. Yes. I nodded. You knew I might say no. So you removed my choice. Tears filled her eyes. I removed my plain wedding band for a moment and placed it beside the photograph. This band cost less than $200 when your father bought it. Lauren looked down. If someone stole it, would the betrayal be smaller because it was cheap? She said nothing. I pointed toward the room where my diamond ring was secured. This was never about the diamond. My voice broke slightly. It was about believing that when I handed my daughter something precious, she would remember it was mine. Lauren started crying. I did too. But I kept going. You didn't trust me enough to ask. I was ashamed. I know. You would have judged us. Maybe. You would have said Dad warned us. I might have thought it. Exactly. And you decided avoiding embarrassment mattered more than my consent. She wiped her face. I didn't think of it like that. I know you didn't. That was the tragedy. She hadn't sat down and decided to betray me. She had made one compromise, then another, until betrayal became the sum of choices she kept calling temporary. Eric put a hand on her shoulder. She didn't pull away. I can't talk anymore, she said. I nodded. Lauren walked toward the door. Before she reached it, she turned. I hope keeping that ring makes you happy. The old Victoria would have heard accusation and rushed to defend herself. Instead, I answered quietly. It won't. She looked surprised. None of this makes me happy. I swallowed. But happiness isn't the same thing as doing what's right. She left. Eric paused. I'm sorry. I know. Then he followed her. Daniel returned several minutes later. You all right, No? I gave him a tired smile. But apparently that's becoming a theme. He smiled gently. The paperwork should be resolved soon. Thank you. I looked through the glass toward the locked area where my ring was being held. I had won, if that was what anyone wanted to call it. The ring would return to me. The false ownership claim had been corrected. My savings remained mine. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt like a mother standing on one side of a boundary while her daughter disappeared on the other. That night, Lauren didn't call. Neither did she call the next day, or the day after that. A week became 2, then a month. For the first time in Lauren's life, I didn't chase after her to make the pain disappear. And as the silence between us stretched into months, I began to understand that boundaries can protect your dignity while still breaking your heart. The first month without Lauren felt unnatural. That is the only word I know for it. Unnatural. For 39 years, my daughter had existed somewhere inside the rhythm of every week. A phone call, a photograph, a complaint about a client, a question about a recipe, an invitation to dinner. Sometimes nothing more than a message saying, "Are you watching this storm?" Then suddenly there was silence. I told myself I would not be the one to break it. That decision sounded stronger in daylight than it felt at 2 in the morning. There were nights when I picked up my phone, opened Lauren's contact, and stared at her name. I could end this, I thought. One call, one apology, not even an apology for taking back the ring. Something softer. "I'm sorry everything became so painful. Are you okay? Do you need anything?" Those words would have been enough to reopen the door. The problem was that I knew myself. "Do you need anything" would eventually become "how much," and how much might become another check. So I waited. The paperwork concerning the ring was resolved within 2 weeks. Daniel called me personally. "You can come get it." I drove to Whitmore and Sons that afternoon. He placed the ring on the same blue velvet pad where I'd seen it before. For several seconds I simply looked at it. "You don't seem excited," Daniel said. "I thought I would be." He smiled gently. "Sometimes getting something back doesn't return you to the person you were before you lost it." That was exactly right. I slipped the ring onto my finger. It fit as it always had. Same diamond, same band, same tiny scratches earned through 18 years of ordinary life. But I wasn't the same woman. Before leaving, I thanked Daniel again. "Your husband deserves most of the credit." "No." Daniel looked surprised. "I touched the ring. James gave me evidence. You made the phone call. But I still had to decide what to do." Daniel smiled. "I suspect your husband would agree." I laughed. He would pretend he thought of everything. That also sounds accurate. I went home wearing the ring, and then life continued. That was another strange lesson. You can have a family crisis that feels as if it should stop the world. The next morning, garbage trucks still come, electric bills still arrive, milk still expires, leaves still fall. Emily continued visiting me. At first, I worried Lauren might try to stop her. She didn't. Emily was careful not to become a messenger between us, and I made sure she never had to. If she mentioned her mother, I listened. I never asked, "What did Lauren say about me?" I never asked whether Lauren regretted anything, and I never used Emily to send messages. One Saturday, while we were making pancakes, Emily said, "Mom thinks you're mad at her." I poured batter onto the griddle. "I am angry about what happened." "Are you mad at her?" I thought carefully. Those are different questions. Emily waited. "I love your mother." "I know, and I'm angry about choices she made." "Do you hate her?" I turned off the burner and looked at her. "No. Not even a little no." She smiled faintly. "Sometimes I do." "Emily. Not hate. I know what you mean." She sighed. "Everything at home is weird." I didn't ask for details. Eventually, I learned what happened through ordinary conversation. Eric's company couldn't survive in its existing form. The lender pursued the remaining collateral, and pressure from suppliers continued, rather than drag the business through months of deeper debt. Eric negotiated a sale of its remaining contracts, equipment, and client relationships to a larger renovation company. He didn't get rich. He didn't walk away with some miraculous check, but he avoided complete collapse. The company that bought the assets offered him a salaried project management position. Eric took it. That surprised me. For years he'd been proud of owning his own business. But perhaps pride becomes less important after you've nearly lost everything protecting it. Their second vehicle was sold. Then came the house. Emily told me gently. They're listing it. I stopped folding the towel in my hands. Are you okay? She shrugged. I like the house. I know, but it's just a house. I smiled. That's a surprisingly mature thing for 17. Don't sound so shocked. I laughed. Lauren and Eric sold the large Glen Allen home and moved into a smaller 3-bedroom townhouse. No one became homeless. No one starved. Emily remained in the same school district. Eric still worked. Lauren still staged houses. The catastrophe they had been willing to risk my ring to prevent turned out to be painful, embarrassing, and survivable. That realization stayed with me. Sometimes we destroy our principles, trying to avoid consequences that would have taught us we were stronger than we thought. My own life changed too. For years, especially after James died, I had organized much of my emotional life around Lauren and Emily. If Lauren needed me, I went. If she called, I answered. If she had a problem, I thought about it until I could find a solution. Without that constant pull, I suddenly had empty space. At first, I hated it. Then I started filling it. Carol invited me to join a community gardening group. I almost refused. I have a garden. This isn't about vegetables, Victoria. What is it about getting you out of your house? So I went. The first Saturday, I spent 3 hours pulling weeds beside a retired librarian named Denise, who talked more than any human being I had ever met. I came home exhausted and happy. Not dramatically happy, just lighter. I began having lunch with friends more often. I reorganized the guest room. I finally donated some of James's clothes. Not all. His old navy sweater stayed. There are boundaries, and then there are sweaters no one is allowed to touch. 6 months passed. Lauren and I exchanged exactly 4 messages. Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, Happy Birthday, thank you. That was our relationship. 4 messages. Then one rainy Thursday afternoon in April, my doorbell rang. I was upstairs changing sheets. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I looked through the window, I saw Lauren standing on my porch. My heart reacted before my mind did. I hurried downstairs. Then I stopped with my hand on the doorknob. For one irrational second, I wondered whether she needed money. I hated that thought. But trust once damaged changes the questions you ask. I opened the door. Lauren looked different. Her hair was pulled back simply. No carefully coordinated outfit. No expensive handbag. Just jeans, a navy sweater, and an envelope tucked beneath her arm. Hi, Mom. Hi. Rain fell behind her. Can I come in? I stepped aside. She entered. For several seconds, neither of us knew what to do. We didn't hug. I hated that too. Coffee, I asked. Yes, please. Some habits survive almost anything. We went into the kitchen. Lauren sat at the same table where she'd once asked to borrow my ring. I poured 2 cups. When I sat across from her, she noticed my hand. The ring was there. Her eyes lingered on it. Then she looked away. I wasn't sure you'd still wear it. Why wouldn't I? I don't know. She wrapped both hands around her coffee. How's Emily? I smiled faintly. You probably know better than I do. Right. Silence. I looked at the envelope. What did you bring? Lauren placed it on the table. My stomach tightened. She opened it. Photographs slid out. The anniversary photographs. I recognized them immediately. Lauren and Eric. Lauren and me. Our hands together. My ring on her finger. The images that had been used to support the lie. I almost threw these away, she said. Why didn't you? I wanted to. She picked up the photograph of us together. I hated looking at this. So do I. Her eyes filled. I know. I waited. For once, I didn't help her find the next sentence. Lauren had to do that herself. She looked at the photograph for a long time. Then she said, We moved 3 months ago. I heard. Of course you did. Emily told me. Eric works for Hammond Renovations now. How is he better? That surprised me. Better, he sleeps. I understood. And you? She looked around my kitchen. I don't know yet. Fair answer. We had to sell a lot. I said nothing. The second car. Furniture that didn't fit. Some things I thought I couldn't live without. Her mouth twisted into a sad smile. Turns out I can. I almost smiled back. Then she became serious. Do you know what the worst part was? I waited, not losing the house. Her fingers tightened around the photograph. Not Eric losing the company. She looked at me, realizing we survived. I frowned slightly. Why is that the worst part? Because I used that ring because I told myself we were preventing disaster. Her voice shook. But the disaster happened anyway. I stayed silent. And we're still here. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Eric has a job. Emily is okay. I still work. We have a home. She looked down. I betrayed you to protect a life that wasn't even necessary for us to be a family. My eyes filled. Lauren wiped her face. I kept telling myself you didn't understand what was at stake. She laughed bitterly. You understood better than I did. I wanted to reach across the table. I didn't. Not yet. Why are you here, Lauren? She looked directly at me. For the first time in months, I saw no defensiveness, no urgency, no calculation, just shame. I didn't come for money. I nodded. I didn't come to ask you to fix anything. All right. And I'm not here to ask for the ring. My hand instinctively touched it. Lauren noticed. Pain crossed her face. I understand why you did that. Did what checked it. I lowered my hand. I wish I didn't. I know. She pushed the photograph toward me. I've spent 6 months looking at what I did and trying to find a version where I wasn't the person who did it. Her voice cracked. There isn't one. I swallowed. Lauren looked down at James's ring, then back at me. I finally understand what I did. The sentence hung between us. I had waited 6 months to hear something like it. But I didn't tell her everything was forgiven. I didn't tell her we could forget it. Instead, I asked the only question that mattered. What do you understand? Lauren took a long breath. And then for the first time since she'd borrowed my wedding ring, my daughter began telling me the truth without being cornered into it. Lauren looked down at the photograph between us. For a long moment, she said nothing. I didn't rescue her from the silence. That was new for me, too. Finally, she spoke. The worst thing isn't that I took the ring. I waited. It isn't even that I lied. Her fingers trembled slightly. The worst thing is that I never really believed I'd have to live with what I did. I frowned. What do you mean? She looked at me. Somewhere in my head I always thought you'd fix it. The honesty of that sentence hurt more than another excuse would have. Lauren continued before I could respond. When Eric's business started failing, I was terrified. Every bill felt like proof that we'd ruined our lives. I kept thinking about the house, Emily's college applications, what people would say if Eric's company collapsed. She gave a small, embarrassed laugh. I was worried about people finding out we weren't doing as well as they thought. You cared that much about appearances? I didn't think I did. She looked around my kitchen. But I did. I thought about her career. Lauren had spent years making houses look better than they really were. She knew how to hide flaws before photographs, how to remove clutter, how to create the appearance of space. Perhaps she'd begun staging her own life the same way. When the bank wouldn't extend Eric's credit, she continued, I started thinking about everything we could use. The second car. She nodded. Some business equipment. Then the ring. My chest tightened. I hate saying that. Say it anyway. She nodded. When I held it in your kitchen, I wondered what it was worth. I remembered that afternoon. Did Dad ever tell you what he paid insurance questions I'd dismissed because they came from my daughter? I told myself I was only curious. But you weren't. No. Tears filled her eyes. I knew we might need more collateral. Before you borrowed it, I knew it was possible. That was painful. But I appreciated the truth. So when you said it was for photographs, the photo shoot was real, I know. But part of me already knew I might do something else with it afterward. I inhaled slowly. Lauren looked ashamed. I didn't come there with some master plan to trick you. I believe you. I think that's almost worse. Why? Because I crossed the line 1 inch at a time. That sentence stayed with me. 1 inch at a time. Maybe that was how most betrayals happened. Not with a person waking up and deciding to become cruel. With one compromise, then another, then another, until they stood somewhere they never imagined they would go. Lauren wiped her cheeks. After Cavalier valued it, I panicked. Because you knew you needed proof it belonged to you. Yes. And that's when you used the photographs. She nodded. I told myself it wasn't really lying because someday the ring might come to me anyway. I stared at her. There it was. The assumption James had feared. Future inheritance treated as present ownership. You thought because you might inherit something you already had some claim to it. Yes. At 68 while I was very much alive. Her face crumpled. I know how horrible that sounds. It sounds honest. She nodded. I had started thinking of things that way without realizing it. Your house, Dad's investments, the ring. I felt a chill. You asked about my house. I know. Were you planning to use it too? No. Her answer came firmly. I swear. But I thought about what would eventually be mine. I didn't like hearing it. But this was the conversation we'd needed months earlier. Lauren continued. Dad used to say I treated tomorrow's money like today's money. I almost smiled. That sounds like him. I hated when he said it. He had a gift. Lauren laughed through her tears. He really did. For a moment we shared something familiar. Then she became serious again. When you refused to pay the loan, I hated you. I appreciated that honesty too. I figured. I told Eric you were selfish. I suspected that. I said Dad would have helped. I looked down. Maybe he would have. Lauren shook her head. No. You don't know that. I do now. She leaned back. Dad might have helped once, but not after what I did. Maybe she was right. Maybe not. James wasn't there to answer. And I no longer needed to use the dead to settle arguments among the living. Your father loved you, I said. I know. He worried about you. I know that now too. Lauren looked at my hand. I used to think his boundaries meant he trusted me less than you did. What do you think now? That maybe he understood me better? The answer hurt, but not in a bad way. There's something I want you to see. I stood and went upstairs. James's envelope was inside the fireproof box. I brought it down and placed it on the table. Lauren recognized his handwriting immediately. Her face changed. That's Dad's. Yes. What is it the jeweler gave it to me? She looked confused. I explained the inscription. Daniel. James's instructions. The envelope he'd left 8 years earlier. Lauren listened without interrupting. When I finished, she stared at it. He thought I'd steal the ring, no. I said it firmly. Your father did not predict what you did. Then why he knew me? She looked at me. He knew I had trouble saying no to you. Lauren's eyes lowered. And he worried our help had become something you expected. I slid the envelope toward her. Read it. Are you sure? Yes. Lauren unfolded the letter. I watched her face as she read. When she reached the line I already knew by heart, her lips moved silently. Love does not require surrender. Then she started crying. Not the desperate crying I'd seen during the crisis. This was quieter. She reached the end and pressed the letter against her chest. I miss him. So do I. I wish he were here. So do I. I'd apologize. I think he knew you loved him. That isn't the same thing. No. She folded the letter carefully. I used him against you. Yes. Her eyes filled again. I kept saying Dad would help me, because I knew it hurt you. Yes, I'm sorry. I nodded. I know. Then she said something I hadn't expected. I don't want the ring. My fingers touched it instinctively. I didn't offer it. I know. A small smile appeared through her tears. I mean someday. I looked at her. If you put it in your will for me, I don't want to know. Why? Because I need to stop living like anything that belongs to you already has my name on it. That may have been the moment I knew something had genuinely changed. Not fixed. Changed. I took her hand. For the first time since she arrived, we touched. You may have this ring someday. Lauren shook her head. Mom. Listen. She did. I may leave it to you. I may leave it to Emily. I may donate it. I may be buried wearing it. Lauren laughed through her tears. Knowing you probably. The point is, whatever happens will be my choice. She nodded. I understand. And while I'm alive, this ring stays with me. It should. I squeezed her hand. I forgive you. Her face crumpled again. But forgiveness doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. I know. Trust comes back slower. I know. And I am never paying Eric's business debts. She actually laughed. Eric would probably stop you now. That surprised me. How is he different? So are you. So are you. She was right. We sat at that kitchen table for nearly 3 hours. We didn't repair 6 months in one afternoon. There were no dramatic promises, no magical return to how things had been. Maybe that was why I trusted it. Healing wasn't an eraser. It was rebuilding. Slowly. One honest conversation at a time. Over the following months, Lauren began coming over again. At first once every couple of weeks, then more often. Eric came too. He never asked me for money. Emily graduated from high school and decided on Virginia Tech. The four of us had dinner at my house before she left for college. Lauren stood beside me, cutting vegetables while Eric complained that I had bought too much food. You sound like James, I told him. Everyone went quiet. Then Lauren smiled. Dad would say you didn't buy enough dessert. We laughed, and for once James's name didn't hurt. It felt like he belonged in the room. Later that evening, after everyone left, I washed the dishes and stood alone by the kitchen window. My ring caught the light. For 18 years, I had believed the diamond represented everything James and I built. I still believed that. But now it meant something else. James hadn't saved me from beyond the grave. Daniel hadn't saved me either. They had simply reminded me of something I'd forgotten. I was allowed to protect myself. I was allowed to love my daughter without financing every mistake. I was allowed to forgive without surrendering my boundaries. And sometimes the greatest gift a mother can give an adult child isn't another rescue. It's the chance to discover that falling doesn't always